Chapter 2058. Therefore, with the activation of immortal Yen Hong's spiritual power, the whole transparent surroundings began to dim again. However, this dim yellow was like the setting sun, gradually diffusing and expanding to the whole space. As the darkness approached, many spheres were revealed. The original dazzling light was now so pale. 10 huge spheres slowly appeared in the distance, and each sphere emitted endless light and heat. However, this light and this heat were like pearls embedded in the night sky, causing everyone to only admire it and not feel any fear. 10 suns. Xiao Hua frowned. Obviously, he thought of the scene he saw when he saw the god statue for the first time in Shanghuaming. However, before he could take a closer look and see that it was a fireball, the whole starry sky rotated at an extremely fast speed. Countless spheres rushed to his face, and then they swayed and were left behind. There were even many small spheres gathered together, looking like a light mist. When everyone's vision got closer, they were surprised to see that the planet was huge. Right when Xiao Hua was completely infatuated, the starry sky suddenly lit up, and then everyone saw a tiny hill. After that, it suddenly descended as if it was descending from the heavens. Only when they entered the hill did they notice that it was the mountain range of Bright City. With a soft swish, the whole Xian Kong pavilion was restored to its original state, and everyone was still sitting on the platform above the mountain range. Great! All the nascent soul cultivators clapped their hands, and Fairy Miao Chang of the Five Elements sect said with a smile, "It is often said that the comprehension of the way of the heavens can only be comprehended after the Mahayana tribulation. But I didn't expect that. The ancient methods were so mysterious that they could actually store such a way of the heavens in the starry sky and leave it to future generations." Haha, Immortal Ku Yi laughed and said, "Fairy Miao Chang's words are reasonable, but whether there is a way of the heavens in the starry sky or whether it is the work of the celestial beings is still unknown. Moreover, the celestial beings in the ancient times didn't cultivate, which is completely different from the path we cultivators take." Then, the other nascent soul cultivators also talked about a lot of things. Only Reverend Yen Hong smiled without saying anything. Finally, he said with a smile, "Although we can't directly come into contact with the heavenly Tao now, the 3,000 great Taos are what we pursue. To be able to know what the great Tao is, it is no different from pointing out the direction of our cultivation. This is something that is far more useful than any master teacher or secret art." Boom! To other people, perhaps these words didn't mean much, but to Xiao Hua, it was like a sudden clap of thunder. Not bad. Xiao Hua's heart surged with monstrous waves. Although I don't have a complete cultivation method, I don't have a direct path to the nascent soul stage. However, I have the heavenly Tao starry sky. This is the cultivation method of the ancient celestial beings. This was the true shortcut to heaven. Why do I have to be restricted to ordinary cultivation? Even if I don't enter the Imperial Thunder sect and don't have a master to guide me, as long as I carefully comprehend the heavenly Tao, I will definitely be able to achieve sainthood. Hee. Xiao Hua was in a great mood, and he thought to himself, this auction in Haoming City was really worth it. The knowledge of a nascent soul cultivator is extraordinary. Hee. Sainthood is just the cultivation method of the ancient celestial beings. Since the ancient celestial beings have died out, it shows that this method still has some disadvantages. Now that I'm in the cultivation world, I'd better follow the rules here and not be too conspicuous. Xiao Hua immediately thought again. Yes, other people's Tao is other people's Tao. We have our own Tao. Changbai Sec's Li Tsunqing said proudly, no matter what Tao it is, as long as we can get it, it's a real Tao. Great Reverend Yen Hong clapped his hands and said, there are 3,000 great Taos. Just one Tao is enough for us to pursue for a lifetime. Well, fellow Taoists, let's start the second round. Reverend Yen Hong waved his hand and said, the second round is still the same as before. There's no need to follow any order. If any fellow Taoist has something rare, take it out and see if other fellow Taoists are interested. I'll go first. Reverend Shui Mo of the Huangdao sect stood up and clapped his hands. He took out an item and said with a smile, I was traveling in the Lien country 10 years ago and very accidentally found this item in a space that was about to be destroyed. I don't know what its origin is. I wonder if any fellow Taoist is interested." As he spoke, he placed the item on his table. "Ah. Tortoise shell?" Xiao Hua's eyes swept over it and his heart heated up. His eyes couldn't help but stick to it. He had practiced the inscription armor for a long time and had some understanding of the inscription armor on his broken tortoise shell. However, what was recorded on the tortoise shell seemed to be an article and also seemed to be a cultivation method. He still couldn't understand it. "If no one bids, or if the bidders don't know what this item is, I'll take it." Xiao Hua thought to himself and prepared to see the situation. He was going to send a voice transmission to Hua Furong and ask her to inform Hua Zhishan. Unexpectedly, before Xiao Hua could change his mind, Changbai Sex Li Tsanqing raised his hand and said, "I'm interested in this item." As he spoke, he bid a number of spirit stones. "Ah." Xiao Hua was stunned and looked at Li Tsanqing in exasperation. He secretly complained, "Senior Li, even if you have spirit stones, you don't have to squander them like this. You casually bid a number and this junior will add a bit more. Won't this deal be closed? With such a high price, I'm afraid this junior's storage bag will be emptied." Xiao Hua thought this was an ordinary auction and wanted to pick up a bargain. However, which of the nascent soul cultivators in front of him hadn't lived for thousands of years? Which one of them hadn't experienced much more than Xiao Hua? Following Li Tsanqing's bid, several cultivators once again raised the price. It was too much for Xiao Hua to take in. In the end, Li Tsanqing laughed coldly and named a price, then looked around. Xiao Hua knew this was his last chance. He clenched his teeth and really wanted to take the tortoise shell. However, when he saw Imperial Thunder Sect's Reverend Miyu and the other nascent soul cultivators narrowing their eyes, Xiao Hua shrunk his neck and decided to ignore them. "Good." Looking around, Reverend Yan Hong clapped his hands and said, "This item belongs to fellow Taoist Li." Li Tsanqing proudly smiled and took out a storage bag from his waist. He threw it on the ring of light and the tortoise shell turned towards Li Tsanqing. Immediately, two nascent soul cultivators stood up and took out two items that Xiao Hua couldn't see through. One was a fist-sized black object and the other was a dazzling thin needle. These two items were emitting strange fluctuations of spiritual power. As expected by Xiao Hua, he didn't know what these things were used for, and the others didn't say anything either. They only saw the price of the spirit stones rising higher and higher. Xiao Hua was dumbstruck, and only then did he stop. The spirit stones were given to someone else, and the two items also changed owners. Damn it, this young master was wrong. This young master was wrong and was too unreliable. Xiao Hua sullenly complained in his heart, this young master only knew that there were many good things in this nascent soul cultivators auction, but this young master didn't expect that each and every one of these old nascent soul cultivators would have discerning eyes. How could they let go of these good things? This young master didn't have any miho or disguise, so how could he dare to bid with them? That's right, along with the increase in cultivation, a cultivator's horizons and experience would also increase. The higher the level of a high-level cultivator's bidding, the more difficult it would be to find good things that others wouldn't pay attention to. Xiao Hua's little abacus would most likely not be as effective in the future. Well, I have been sitting for a long time, so it's time to take out some things. The second miho cultivator stood up with a smile. Although he was smiling, his laughter was like the cry of a crow. Fellow Taoist, please. Reverend Yan Hong said with a smile. There was a trace of politeness in his tone. The miho cultivator clapped his hands and took out a dozen behemoths from his storage bag. He threw them into the ring of light and said with a smile, "This old man went to Mo Zhao Black Forest a few days ago and didn't have any harvest. These things are all picked up, so it's not a wasted trip." Huh? Xiao Hua's divine sense swept over and was surprised. At the same time, he was surprised because the dozen behemoths were actually Mo Zhao. Huh, fellow Taoist, you are really lucky. Reverend Yan Hong said with a smile, it is said that a lot of fellow Taoists were killed in Mo Zhao Black Forest last time. I didn't expect fellow Daoists to return with a full load. These Mo Zhao corpses have always been eaten by Mo Zhao himself. It is very difficult for us to get them. Reverend Yan Hong was right. The 3 Mo Zhao corpses that Zhu Qinghe gave to Chen Yi and the others were too small to be compared with the dozen Mo Zhao corpses in front of them. Of course, they couldn't be compared with the Mo Zhao corpses in Xiaohua's space. Yes, this old man was lucky enough to be in a safe place in Mo Zhao Black Forest. By the time I made my move, I thought it was already very early. Neither the giant ink puppets nor the ink puppets had made a move. However, all that was left were the corpses of the ink puppets. There was not even a single giant ink puppet left. The cultivator said with a smile. Oh my, this guy isn't the nascent soul cultivator who chased me that day, is he? Xiaohua secretly shrank his neck and rejoiced. Fortunately, I changed my appearance that day. This guy didn't recognize me. Fellow Taoists, this old man has left enough Mo Zhao corpses for myself, so I won't be unreasonable. These dozen Mo Zhao corpses will be sold together. The fellow Taoist who offers the highest price will get them. The Miho cultivator said loudly. Good. Reverend Withered Leaf shouted and reported the number of spirit stones first. Immediately, Hua Zhishan, who had been silent all this time, also raised the price. These Mo Zhao corpses. Do they have any special uses? Seeing that all the nascent soul cultivators were bidding, Xiaohua muttered to himself. He thought for a moment and whispered to Hua Furong, fellow Daoist Hua, I really don't understand. These Mo Zhao corpses must be the Mo Zhao from Mo Zhao Black Forest, but what is so special about them? Why would a group of nascent soul cultivators fight over it? Chapter 2059. Hua Furong smiled apologetically and replied, This. I don't know either. I can ask my great-grandfather. However, in my opinion, fellow Daoist Xiao shouldn't have any ideas about this thing. I understand. I'm just curious. Xiao Hua replied naturally. Hua Furong replied to Hua Pai Kong immediately after Hua Furong replied. Hua Furong then explained to Xiao Hua, I heard from my great-grandfather that this Mo Zhao has many benefits. Its skin can be used to make leather armor and its bones can be used to refine weapons. Its 2 greatest benefits are its inner core and brain. Xiao Hua was slightly stunned and asked curiously, are they Mo Zhao's inner core and brain? Mo Zhao grew up in the Black Forest with a lot of ink sand. Mo Zhao grew up in the Black Forest and inevitably accumulated ink sand in his body. The inner core is the accumulation of ink sand and has been refined by Mo Zhao since he was born. Almost every Mo Zhao has an inner core. If a Mo Zhao wants to form his core, it will be formed on the inner core formed by ink sand. Hua Furong continued, ink sand can corrode true origin, so the inner core of Mo Zhao can corrode true origin as well. The inner core of Mo Zhao is a powerful weapon in the hands of a cultivator to break restrictions. I see. Xiao Hua suddenly understood. Then, a thought came to his mind. Since the inner core of Mo Zhao can break restrictions, then, the seal can also be broken? The seal on my middle dantian. If it is broken, I'm afraid it will be on the inner core of Mo Zhao. Hua Furong did not know what Xiao Hua was thinking and continued, as for the brain of Mo Zhao, if it is consumed with a secret technique, it will have a mysterious effect on the sensitivity of the 5 senses. This is especially so for a secret technique that works on the 5 senses. This brain is the best item. Oh, I understand. Xiao Hua nodded slightly and asked naturally, it seems that Senior Hua also knows this secret technique? Yes, it should be. Hua Furong smiled and said, otherwise, my great-grandfather wouldn't have bid. The cultivators who had bid earlier were obviously embarrassed. Gradually, only Immortal Blue Feather of the Immortal Music Sect and Hua Zhishan of the Ardent Fire Mountain were still bidding. The cultivators from the 3 cultivation sects of the country of Shi and the large sects of the Meng country and the Lian country also withdrew. It seemed like it was not worth it for them to invest so many spiritual stones on Mo Zhao's corpse. Daoist Blue Feather, was Shan transmitted, if I don't give you my essence, will you fight me to the end? Hee, not at all, Daoist Blue Feather smiled and said, fellow Daoist, I'm sure you know that I'm good at artifact refinement, and one of my divine abilities requires the brain of Mo Zhao's corpse to be perfected. Moreover, Mo Zhao's bones are the best material for repairing spiritual weapons. How can I not be tempted? How about this? Hua Zhishan hesitated for a moment before replying, if you give me some leeway on Mo Zhao's corpse, I will also give you some leeway on the innate jellyfish. Fellow Daoist Hua, you're wrong. Daoist Master Bluefeather shakes his head and says, I don't know the whereabouts of that innate jellyfish I don't know when I'll trade with you. Hua Zhishan rolled his eyes and says helplessly, how about this? I do have some clues about the innate jellyfish, but the three of us are unable to catch it. If fellow Daoist is interested, I'll send you a message when the time comes and we'll go together. If we succeed, I'll consider exchanging your soul for something else. How about that? Daoist Master Bluefeather thought for a moment before withdrawing from the bidding, and Hua Zhishan got his wish of getting the dozen or so Mo Zhao's corpse. Seeing Hua Pai Kong beaming with joy, Xiao Hua transmitted his voice to Hua Furong and says, fellow Daoist Hua, if I ask the three elders to trade for the secret technique of using Mo Zhao's brain, what will the success rate be? Hua Furong frowned and looked at Xiao Hua's face and asked, does fellow Daoist Xiao want such a secret technique? Xiao Hua hesitated for a moment before nodding. This. I can't say for sure. I don't know the value of this secret technique. Hua Furong is in a difficult position and says, allow me to find time to ask great-grandfather. Thank you, fellow Daoist Hua. Xiao Hua faintly smiled, then looked towards the field and asked with some surprise, this Xiao still doesn't understand. Why is it always a strange object? Could it be that there are no cultivation techniques, talisman crafting techniques, or artifact crafting techniques? So fellow Daoist Xiao is interested in these. Hua Furong smiles and says, don't worry, those are all at the end. Sure enough, just as Hua Hibiscus said, after a few more rounds, cultivation methods began to appear. After more than 10 rounds, Xiao Hua lost his patience and saw Fairy Poyu stand up. She clapped her hand and took out a black crystal. She placed it on the table and said, dozens of years ago, this servant participated in the Battle of the Imperial Demon Valley for the first time and was lucky enough to kill a demon cultivator. I obtained this magic slip from that demon cultivator. Inside this magic slip is a body refining technique from the devil realm. This servant naturally has no use for the devil sex techniques. Today, I will take it out and see if any fellow cultivator needs it. Very good. Xiao Hua was unable to contain his joy when he heard that a body refinement and bone cultivation technique had indeed appeared during the auction, and he hurriedly sent a voice transmission to Hua Furong. Fellow Daoist Hua, I'll have to trouble you to report to Elder Hua that this body refinement technique is something that I, Xiao, wish to obtain. Okay, Hua Furong is happy for Xiao Hua. She quickly sends a message to Hua Zhishan. Hua Zhishan thinks for a bit and asks Xiao Hua, what do you want this for? Junior, once practiced a body refinement technique, but that cultivation method was incomplete, and after practicing it for a long time, I ended up with nothing. Because of this body refinement technique, Junior benefited a lot, so I want to continue practicing it. Xiao Hua easily found a reason. This is a demon world cultivation technique. Can you practice it? Hua Zhishan scolds, besides, do you have devil sense? Can you read the magic slip? This. Xiao Hua is stunned. All you have to do is to cultivate your own cultivation method properly. This isn't something you can use. Hua Zhishan says coldly, don't waste your hard-earned spirit stones. But. Elder Hua. Xiao Hua isn't willing, he sends a message, Junior might not be able to understand it, but I can ask the seniors in the sect. I'm sure Master Me you would be willing to interpret it for me? How could that be? Hua Zhishan says impatiently, fine, since you want it, this old man won't stop you. How many spirit stones do you have? If it was something else, this old man can pay you some, but this old man won't give you even half a spirit stone. Xiao Hua looks around and sees that no one is bidding. He is secretly happy. He knows that demon world cultivation techniques aren't suitable for nascent soul cultivators of the cultivation world, so no one will care. Thinking for a bit, he bids a spirit stone that isn't too high, but it's definitely not a spirit stone that an early-stage foundation establishment cultivator can afford. Chapter 2060. Sure enough, Hua Shan was surprised and looked at Xiao Hua. The Imperial Thunder sect is truly rich. I wouldn't dare, this is Junior's private savings. Xiao Hua smiled apologetically. At this time, Fairy Poyu said regretfully, so no fellow Daoist is interested. Then, before she could finish, Hua Shan smiled, Fairy Poyu, this is a rare transaction, how can this old man not give you face? This old man wants it. Then, he gave a price that was neither high nor low. Many thanks, fellow Daoist Hua. Fairy Poyu smiled as if she had gained some face. Daoist Yan Hong also smiled, if no other fellow Daoist bids, then this item is Hua Shan's. Hearing these words, Xiao Hua's little heart couldn't help but beat wildly. Wasn't the purpose of his coming here the bone tempering technique? The Devil Realm's cultivation method was naturally useful, and since Buddhist sense was the nemesis of devil cultivators, he should be able to examine it. But at this time, a third cultivator spoke, so Hua Shan is also interested in this item. This old man thought only I liked it. Then, he began to raise the price. Hua Shan couldn't see who this cultivator was, so he didn't hold back and slowly added spirit stones until Xiao Hua's bid was finished. He even added a few more spirit stones, but the Mi Lu cultivator still calmly bid as if he was determined to get this magic slip. Fine, this old man will raise the price one last time. Hua Shan glanced at Xiao Hua and gave a price that was about the same as the spirit stones in Xiao Hua's storage bag. If fellow Daoist raises the price again, this old man will have to retreat. How can I disappoint fellow Daoist Hua? The Hua Shan continued to raise the price by a large amount. On the other side, Fairy Poyu was overjoyed. She didn't think that a useless item from the Devil Realm would be exchanged for so many spirit stones. Hua Shan said helplessly, all right, this Mo bamboo slip belongs to you. Sigh. Xiao Hua's heart was like dead ashes right now. He thought he had enough spirit stones in his storage pouch, but, even though Hua Shan, for whatever reason, added so many spirit stones in the end and pushed Xiao Hua to his limit, he still lost to the Mi Yao cultivator. Moreover, from the tone of the Mi Lu cultivator, it seemed that he had more spirit stones than this. What a pity, Xiao Hua was truly speechless. Alright, Fairy Poyu has also gained a lot. Daoist Master Yan Hong stood up and said with a smile, does anyone else have anything else? If you don't, then this auction is over. Sigh, returning empty-handed, Xiao Hua howled, preparing to stand up. At this time, Daoist Master Blue Feather, who had been rather lively just now, stood up in embarrassment. He clapped his hands and took out a black magic slip. He said embarrassedly, this old man didn't participate in the battle of the Imperial Devil Valley last time. However, it is said that this item came from the Imperial Devil Valley during the battle. I won't hide it from everyone, this Mo bamboo slip contains a refining technique from the Devil Realm. Ah. It can refine a devil treasure? Daoist Master Withered Leaf shouted, why didn't you take out such a good item earlier? Hee, Daoist Withered Leaf misunderstood. Daoist Master Blue Feather laughed, when I obtained it, it was still in good condition. However, for some reason, it was heavily damaged. It must have been damaged during the battle. I was careless and fell for it. I originally didn't want to take it out, but after thinking about it, this is a Mo bamboo slip. Since Fairy Poyu can take it out, I might as well take it out and embarrass myself. I'll say this in advance, this refining technique is different from my Dawn Rain Continent's refining technique, and it's heavily damaged. I'm afraid it can't be refined into a devil treasure. If any Daoist is interested, you can bid. This old man will naturally bid. Daoist Master Withered Leaf shouted without hesitation, this old man will naturally bid. Since Taoist Master Withered Leaf is interested, I can't fall behind. Taoist Master Shui Mo laughed. Then, the two increased the price bit by bit, as if they were testing each other. Xiao Hua, why don't you want to participate? Hua Zhishan glanced at Xiao Hua and transmitted his voice with interest. No need, Xiao Hua wasn't in a good mood. He wanted the refining technique, after all, he had the Devil Spear tip and Devil Spear shaft in his space. However, Taoist Master Blue Feather had clearly said that the refining technique was damaged and couldn't be refined into a devil treasure. Why should he make trouble for himself? Wasting his own spirit stones for no reason? Oh, then you'll have wasted your trip. Hua Zhishan said, intentionally or otherwise. Xiao Hua's eyes turned. He didn't understand what Hua Zhishan meant, but after thinking for a moment, he transmitted his voice. Yes, Senior Hua's words are reasonable. This junior can't come here for nothing. Since this item is also a devil slip, then Senior Hua, please bid. This junior really wants to see what this devil slip is. Hua Zhishan saw that Taoist Master Shui Mo and Taoist Master Withered Leaf were starting to slow down the bidding and said calmly, you seem to be very interested in the items of the Devil Realm. Yes, this junior heard about the Battle of Imperial Devil Valley. Moreover, I fought against the cultivators of Heavenly Demons sect and obtained some items of Devil cultivators. I am indeed curious about the Devil Realm. Xiao Hua replied after thinking for a moment. Is that so? Hua Zhishan nodded, I hope you're telling the truth. At this time, Taoist Master Shui Mo and Taoist Master Withered Leaf seemed to have reached the end of the bidding and Taoist Master Withered Leaf withdrew. This old man wants to see what this devil slip is. Hua Zhishan smiled. Taoist Master Shui Mo was stunned and asked curiously, Taoist Hua, what do you mean? Your Blazing Fire Mountain doesn't specialize in refining tools. Who said my Blazing Fire Mountain doesn't refine tools? Hua Zhishan smiled, my Blazing Fire Mountain's tool refining techniques are famous in the state of Xi. Taoist Master Shui Mo looked at Hua Zhishan and then at Taoist Master Blue Feather, slightly curling his lips. When Hua Zhishan was bidding for the Devil Realm's body refining techniques, many nascent soul cultivators had seen some clues. Now that Hua Zhishan had suddenly joined the bidding, how could Taoist Master Shui Mo not be suspicious? Forget it, Taoist Master Shui Mo flicked his sleeve and said, this old man still needs to keep his spirit stones for my own use. I'll leave this devil slip to Taoist Hua. Taoist Master Blue Feather seemed to have misunderstood Hua Zhishan and smiled, many thanks for Taoist Hua's support. She then sent a few voice transmissions and passed the devil slip to Hua Zhishan on the Ring of Light. Hua Zhishan didn't expect such an outcome and went with the flow. He smiled and said a few words to Taoist Master Blue Feather and placed a storage pouch on the Ring of Light. Very good. Seeing Hua Zhishan and Taoist Master Blue Feather put away their items, Taoist Master Yan Hong stood up again and clapped his hands, saying, this auction has come to a successful conclusion. My Haoming City has prepared spirit wine. Fellow Taoists, please send your disciples back. Let's drink and chat. Thank you for your trouble, Taoist Master Yan Hong. All the nascent soul cultivators stood up and cupped their hands with a smile. Taoist Master Yan Hong cast a spell again and several spheres several feet in size appeared under each table. Then, these spheres carried the cultivators like meteors and streaked across the space, quickly flying to different places. The 20 cultivators disappeared in a moment. A dot of light gradually enlarged in front of Xiao Hua and the others. When it got closer, it was actually a square several feet in size. It was like a door, emitting a dazzling brilliance. The two cultivators who had sent them here stepped out of the door and said loudly, 3 seniors, please follow us. Hua Peikong laughed and said, damn, this Haoming City is really full of tricks. When the two entered, Xiao Hua and the others' eyes flashed. They saw that they were standing at the entrance of the palace. Hua Zhishan's flying magic tool was not far ahead. The two cultivators respectfully accompanied Hua Peikong and said, 3 seniors, juniors will immediately send seniors to the city lord's mansion for the banquet. Thank you. Hua Zhishan turned to the Golden Core disciple and said, "You can go back. The banquet in Haoming City will take a few days and nights." "Yes," disciple obeys. The Golden Core cultivator bowed without hesitation and walked towards the flying magic tool. Hua Zhishan looked at Xiao Hua and took out a jade box. He handed it to Xiao Hua and said, "This is what you wanted. This old man was fortunate enough to not disappoint you." "Many thanks, Senior Hua." Xiao Hua quickly handed over a storage bag filled with spirit stones to Hua Zhishan. Hua Zhishan took it without hesitation and said, "This old man has already done what he promised you and has already given your gift to Furong. Once you return to the cave, I will give it to you. If fate wills it, this old man welcomes you to Hua Zhishan as a guest." Hua Zhishan had been indifferent to Xiao Hua since that incident. Now, he actually invited Xiao Hua to be a guest. This was beyond Xiao Hua's expectations. Xiao Hua quickly bowed and said, "Many thanks for Senior's care. If this junior has the opportunity, he will definitely come to Hua Zhishan to visit Senior." You can go now." Hua Zhishan turned to leave. Great-grandfather. At this moment, Hua Furong called out and quickly walked to Hua Zhishan's side. After Hua Zhishan heard this, he frowned and looked at Xiao Hua a few times before shaking his head at Hua Furong. But Hua Furong was still unwilling and gently pulled his robe as if she was acting coquettishly. Hua Zhishan then looked at Hua Pai Kong. Hua Pai Kong also had a helpless expression. Hua Zhishan then took out a jade slip from his storage bag and gave it to Hua Furong. Hua Furong then took out a jade slip from her storage bag and gave it back to Hua Zhishan. Xiao Hua was puzzled, but in his heart, there was a trace of understanding. Sure enough, when he followed Hua Hibiscus and the fire Qilin onto the flying magic tool, Hua Hibiscus handed the jade slip to Xiao Hua with a smile and said, "It's all right, fellow Taoist Xiao. Fortunately, I didn't let you down. I've helped you obtain this secret technique." Chapter 2061. Thank you, fellow Taoist Furong. Xiao Hua was overjoyed. He took it and carefully put it into his space. "No need to thank me. This is my thanks for saving my life." Hua Furong smiled. "However, according to what I know, what grandfather gave you was my Blazing Fire Mountain's fire controlling technique. It should be much more powerful than this secret technique. If it were me, I would definitely choose the fire controlling technique." Xiao Hua understood that Hua Shrouded Mountain must have seen that he knew Samadhi true fire and wanted to use the fire controlling technique to thank him. This could be said to be tailor-made and most suitable for him. However, he wanted this secret technique. No wonder Hua Shrouded Mountain refused first. "I didn't know beforehand." Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. "Unfortunately, grandfather said that he could only give you a jade slip." Hua Furong said regretfully. "It's already very good." Xiao Hua smiled. When they reached Hua Shrouded Mountain's cave, the flying artifact stopped. Everyone got off and Xiao Hua bid farewell. Hua Furong smiled. "If fate wills it, I really hope that fellow Taoist Xiao will come to Hua Shrouded Mountain as a guest." "I definitely will." Xiao Hua smiled. Just as he was about to leave, the silent fire Qilin asked, "Fellow Taoist Xiao, I wonder, when will we be able to see fellow Taoist Shui? If fellow Taoist Xiao comes to Hua Shrouded Mountain as a guest, you must bring fellow Taoist Shui." "We'll see." Xiao Hua really couldn't answer this infatuated fellow Taoist. He cupped his hands and quickly flew down the mountain range of Haoming City. On the way, Xiao Hua still thought to himself, since they want to invite me to Hua Shrouded Mountain, they didn't even give me a communication talisman. How is that sincere? Forget it, I'm just a foundation establishment cultivator now. In the eyes of nascent soul cultivators, I'm just a child. It's fine if I don't go. Xiao Hua's thoughts were somewhat wronged by the ardent fire mountain. Not to mention inviting a foundation establishment cultivator, even a golden core cultivator would only be invited with a single sentence. Could it be that the ardent fire mountain would send a communication talisman in person? As for Hua Furong, she wanted to give him a communication talisman. But with the matter of matchmaking in Hua shrouded mountain, how could she have the face to do something so meaningless? There was also a fire Qilin at the side, and he only had one sentence. Can I see fellow Taoist Xiao when you're suitable? Even if Hua Hibiscus wanted to give it to him, she couldn't. However, Xiao Hua had neglected the fact that he still had a keepsake from the ardent fire mountain in his storage bag. When he returned to the cave, all the restrictions were more or less in place. The pill liquid on the pill furnace was still slowly being refined. What comforted Xiao Hua the most was that Xue Xue was cultivating with her eyes closed, completely ignoring the outside world. Clearly, she was cultivating the dragon transformation art. People are indeed different when compared to others. Xiao Hua sighed. It had only been 10 days, and Xue Xue was already able to practice the dragon transformation art. She was much stronger than him. I wonder how Xiao Mao from Xuanyan School is doing. Have you also built your foundation? Xiao Hua naturally thought of Xiao Mao, who had the same surname as him. He thought of how Xiao Mao bowed down and called him Big Brother. The last time he received news of Xiao Mao, he was already in the 10th layer of the aura refining realm. Perhaps he should be in the foundation building realm now? Soon after, Xiao Hua found another quiet room and separated himself from Xue Xue. With a wave of his hand, Hua Furong's jade slip was taken out. He immersed his divine sense into it and carefully read it. After a long while, Xiao Hua could not help but frown. The secret technique in the jade slip was very complete, and there was nothing missing. However, it was obvious that this secret technique was only an auxiliary technique. It could only be used to use Imo Zhao's brain when he was cultivating some kind of sensory divine ability. It could not be used alone. In other words, if Xiao Hua was cultivating a sensory divine ability, such as heaven's eyes, heaven's ears, heaven's smell, and other similar techniques, he could use this secret technique. With the help of Mo Zhao's brain, it would have a miraculous effect. I still can't use it. Xiao Hua racked his brains, but he could not think of any techniques that could be used to cultivate his eyes, mouth, nose, and ears. If he forced himself to say it, his Dharma eyes could be counted as one, and this Dharma eyes. Xiao Hua did not have any techniques for now. Let's put it aside first. Xiao Hua smiled bitterly and put the jade slip into his space. He thought to himself, it seems that I didn't gain anything from this trip other than knowledge and experience. Forget it, let's take a look at the so-called refining techniques of the devil realm. Hopefully, my Buddha's consciousness can't be used. With a wave of his hand, a black jade slip appeared in Xiao Hua's hand. Looking at the jade slip, Xiao Hua had a feeling of déjà vu. This jade slip was like a black stone. It was extremely deep inside, and light seemed to be unable to reach the bottom. Moreover, when he looked at this black stone, he seemed to have a feeling of dizziness, as if he was going to be sucked into it. Strange, Xiao Hua was somewhat puzzled. This young master seems to have never seen this thing before. Could it be that I saw it before my Naiwan palace was sealed? Could it be that this young master also participated in the battle of the Imperial Demon Valley? Thinking about this, Xiao Hua probed with his divine sense. Sure enough, this jade slip was like a stubborn stone. It was very tight, and his divine sense could not penetrate it at all. A nascent soul cultivator probably has other methods, or perhaps it's the so-called devil consciousness. As Xiao Hua pondered, he opened his Dharma eyes. In his Dharma eyes, the Mo bamboo slip was like a small ball of pitch-black fog, but it also seemed like there were many black threads entangled together. It fluttered and became a mess. The devil realm naturally also has heaven and earth spiritual qi. Xiao Hua closed his Dharma eyes and pinched his chin. He thought, the heaven and earth spiritual qi used by the people of the devil realm should be this kind of pitch-black thread. It's probably devil qi. But why doesn't the devil artifact have this kind of devil qi? I'm afraid it's because of the refining techniques of the devil realm. After looking at the jade slip enough, Xiao Hua released his Buddha's consciousness. Sure enough, under the Buddha's consciousness, the jade slip was like a paper window. With a little attack, it broke through the cocoon. Sure enough. Xiaohua's heart was just happy for a moment, but he was immediately attacked by the miserable state inside the jade slip. This magic slip was extremely similar to the jade slip. They both recorded words, but although Xiaohua still didn't understand these words, the words inside the magic slip were already fragmented. Large pieces of cracks were everywhere, and large pieces of the words were missing. Only the first part could barely be seen clearly and could be considered complete. Like I said, wanting to get good things from a nascent soul cultivator is really tantamount to snatching food from a tiger's mouth. There's nothing to think about at all. Xiaohua curled his lips and threw the jade slip into the space. In the future, it's better to wait until I have the strength or something like a secret auction before I participate. Otherwise, it'll only be in vain. But immediately, Xiaohua's heart was unwilling. Since there were some things, then he had to see what they were. Perhaps they could be of some use. Thinking, Xiaohua looked at Shue's situation again. He closed the cave and flew down alone towards the qi refining cultivator's residence. A moment after Xiaohua flew away, a figure appeared in the cave not far from Xiaohua. It was Yan Yu. Chapter 2062. Humph. Didn't I say that Fiery Fire Mountain is just repaying a debt of gratitude? They can't protect you forever. After all, you're a disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect. Since you were able to participate in the auction of nascent soul cultivators, your storage pouch must have been replaced with something that even golden core cultivators can't covet. These. I'm afraid they'll all change owners very soon. Yan Yu quietly flew up and laughed inwardly. If I didn't know your background, who would have thought that you, an early-stage foundation building cultivator, would actually have a storage pouch of a golden core cultivator? You can actually have something that nascent soul cultivators bid on? Although Xiaohua released his divine sense, he didn't expect that there would actually be people watching him in Haoming City. Therefore, he only focused on sizing up the surrounding scenery. The residence of Aura Refining Cultivators was the largest in Haoming City. Their Immortal's Cave was obviously much smaller than that of Foundation Building Cultivators. Moreover, it was also much more crowded. Although there were many spiritual plants, spiritual trees, and other things, they were a bit more common. Of course, there was also a difference. There were more city guards. The city guards wore armor and held long swords in their hands. From time to time, they would fly in the air in groups of 2s and 3s. Many aura refining cultivators were also different from foundation building cultivators. They didn't stay in their immortals' caves to meditate. Instead, they flew all over the mountain range like headless flies. Greetings, Senior. Just as Xiaohua's figure landed, several aura refining cultivators greeted him. They respectfully saluted him and asked, "May I know which auction house Senior wants to go to?" "Junior is willing to serve." Xiaohua frowned slightly. He only knew the general situation of Haoming City, but he knew very little about the specific matters related to the auction. However, before he could speak, the expressions of those aura refining cultivators changed slightly. They hastily cupped their hands and said, "Junior still has something to do. Junior will take his leave." Huh? Why? Xiaohua was even more baffled. When he raised his head to look, he saw several peak stage aura refining cultivators flying over. Obviously, those aura refining cultivators were afraid of these city guards. "Greetings, Senior." The city guards also saluted respectfully. "May I know what Junior can help you with?" What's up with those aura refining cultivators just now?" Xiaohua pointed his finger and said with a smile. The city guard said respectfully, "Senior, it's time for our Haoming City's once-in-a-century auction. Not only are there auctions for nascent soul cultivators, there are also auctions for gold core cultivators, foundation establishment cultivators, and qi refinement cultivators." I know that. Several auctions have started at the same time. I just came out of the Nascent Soul Seniors auction with my seniors. I'm afraid that the auctions for Jean Dan, Foundation Establishment, and Qi Refinement Cultivators have already ended? Senior's a trace of admiration appeared on the guard's face and he spoke with even more respect. Senior went to the auction for nascent soul cultivators. S right, T. To T. Seeing that Xiao Hua didn't answer directly, the city guard said, the number of nascent soul cultivators who come to Haoming City is limited, so the auctions have always been the shortest. The number of core formation cultivators, foundation building cultivators, and aura refining cultivators increases in turn, so the auctions are also divided into several places. Junior just received news that the auctions for core formation cultivators have already ended, but the auctions for foundation building cultivators and aura refining cultivators have yet to end. Good. Xiao Hua clapped his hands and said, I want to go to the foundation building cultivators auction. Can fellow Daoist lead the way? Senior, please. The city guard didn't beat around the bush and extended his hand to signal Xiao Hua. He then flew up first while the other city guards continued their patrol. Fellow Daoist, what's up with those aura refining cultivators just now? Xiao Hua asked again after flying for a while. Oh, it's nothing. The city guard seemed a little reluctant to answer. There are many cultivators who come to Haoming City, so it's hard to distinguish between good and bad. Many cultivators are embarrassingly short of money, so they start to do business with loose cultivators, causing a mess in Haoming City. Of course, those cultivators just now wouldn't have any ideas about foundation building cultivators. However, they, perhaps wanted to provide convenience for Senior, or perhaps they had other plans. In order to prevent something unfavorable to fellow Daoists from happening, the city guards of Haoming City had no choice but to take action and suppress all the signs in advance. Oh, I see. Xiao Hua nodded slightly. In just a short while, the city guard escorted Xiao Hua to the front of a huge immortal's cave. This immortal's cave was no less than 10 times the size of Xiao Hua's immortal's cave. At the entrance of the immortal's cave stood a dozen or so foundation building city guards. When they saw Xiao Hua and Xiao Hua coming over, one of them flew over. The city guard who led Xiao Hua here saluted this person and explained the matter. The city guard scanned Xiao Hua with his divine sense and said with a smile, according to the rules of Haoming City's auctions, you can't enter after the auction starts. However, since fellow Daoist has just come from the auction hosted by the city lord, I presume you still want to continue. How can I stop fellow Daoist's interest? Fellow Daoist only needs to pay 100 high-grade spirit stones to enter. 100? Xiao Hua was a little surprised. This number was indeed not much for him, but he had to pay 100 high-grade spirit stones just to enter. He had to admit that Haoming City was too greedy. Fellow Daoist, please know that ordinary foundation building Daoists only need to pay 10 high-grade spirit stones. The city guard said very naturally. If you come late, you'll have to pay 10 times the amount. I understand. Xiao Hua nodded and clapped his hands. Without blinking, he took out 110 spirit stones and said, Fellow Daoist, please lead the way. The city guard scanned with his divine sense and naturally knew the number of spirit stones. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly, and he put them into his storage bag. He said with a smile, Fellow Daoist, please. After the city guard entered the immortal's cave, they turned into a pitch-black quiet room after passing through a few corridors. Fellow Daoist, please. This secret room can isolate the probing of divine sense. Fellow Daoist, you can put on bewilderment and other items inside. The city guard stopped, handed over a number plate, and said with a smile, This is fellow Daoist's number plate. After the auction, fellow Daoist can keep this number plate as a souvenir. Moreover, you can enjoy a discount in my Haoming City's shops. Many thanks. Xiao Hua nodded and took the number plate. He didn't say anything else. He raised his head and walked in. He didn't put on any bewilderment, and when he passed through the quiet room, his figure and face had already changed. After Xiao Hua passed through the quiet room, his eyes lit up. It was a huge immortal's cave, and thousands of cultivators were sitting in different positions in an orderly manner. In the center was a platform, and on the platform was a late-stage foundation building cultivator. In front of that cultivator floated a jade tablet. The sound of bidding rose and fell in an endless stream. A smile appeared on Xiao Hua's face. This was the auction that he was familiar with. Xiao Hua scanned with his divine sense and sat down on the nearest seat. Just as he sat down, a plate of spirit fruits quietly floated next to the table. And, not bad. Xiao Hua stretched out his hand without any trace of politeness, picked up a spirit fruit, and put it into his mouth. This was exchanged with 100 high-grade spirit stones, after all. TCH, this spirit fruit is really ordinary. Xiao Hua casually ate a few mouthfuls, then swept his divine sense toward the high platform in the center. At this time, the auctioneer had already removed the silk on the jade plate. It was a precious refining material. In Xiao Hua's ears, there was already a foundation-building cultivator who called a relatively high price for this item. However, after seeing the auction of nascent soul cultivators, Xiao Hua felt that this auction of foundation-building cultivators was too childish. Xiao Hua was somewhat familiar with this material. It should be related to the repair of the cloud-suppressing seal. Therefore, Xiao Hua didn't even warm his seat before he immediately made a bid. Moreover, Xiao Hua was too ruthless. He increased the number of spirit stones by 30% all of a sudden. The several people who were still in full swing a moment ago immediately went silent. Good, the auctioneer said with a smile, if no one makes a bid, this Yunying stone is this fellow Taoist's. Immediately after, the auctioneer clapped his hand, and the Yunying stone on the jade plate disappeared. Then, a faint brilliance flashed on Xiao Hua's table, and the Yunying stone appeared on it. Not bad, Xiao Hua nodded secretly. With a wave of his hand, the Yunying stone was put into his space. Then, he placed the spirit stones inside it. When the brilliance disappeared, the spirit stones were also taken away. The legendary technique of Haoming City seems to be very detailed. There are traces of this technique everywhere. Xiao Hua thought of Taoist master Yan Hong's methods during the nascent soul meeting. The dozen or so items that followed were all lacking in quality and were boring. Xiao Hua didn't care about them. But at this time, the auctioneer spoke again. Fellow Taoists, after more than 10 rounds of bidding, most of the items that fellow Taoists consigned for sale, as well as the items prepared by Haoming City, have been successfully sold. We'll take a break for now. If any fellow Taoist still wants to sell something, you can put it on the table in front of you. I have said this several times, but I still have to say it this time. When you sit down, the number plate on your body has already been connected with the magic array on the table. Fellow Taoists' items also have the mark of the number plate, so there's no mistake. After the bidding, the spirit stones will still be sent to your table. Well, during the break, I will also put the items that failed in the previous bidding here. If any fellow Taoist likes them, you can still take them away. After the auctioneer finished speaking, he waved his hand. Dozens of jade boxes, jade bottles, magic tools, and other items were carried on jade plates and flew around the high platform. It was similar to the bidding that Xiao Hua had seen before. Then, the auctioneer stamped his foot again. At the edge of the high platform, a brilliance flashed, and a row of pitch-black magic tools was actually revealed, neatly placed there. There are even magic tools. Xiao Hua was slightly taken aback, but when his divine sense swept over, a trace of happiness appeared on his face. He saw that among the row of pitch-black magic tools, there was a magic spear end that was similar to the magic spear in his space, and it was placed there all by itself. In front of the spear end, there was a jade plate with the number of spirit stones written on it. Great, I didn't think I would actually be able to find this item here. Xiao Hua was overjoyed. Although he didn't know what kind of magic spear he could refine by putting the magic spear tip, shaft, and tail together, the magic spear tip was his earliest life-saving weapon. He still hoped to complete this magic spear. Seeing the auctioneer's body flash with brilliance and disappear from the high platform, several cultivators stood up from their seats and walked towards the high platform. The majority of the cultivators didn't care. They closed their eyes to rest, or took out something from their storage pouches, causing the entire hall to faintly flicker with brilliance. Chapter 2063. However, when Xiao Hua extended his hand to grab the tail of the demonic spear, a fair and jade-like hand also appeared in his field of vision. It was precisely grabbing the tail of the demonic spear. What made Xiao Hua very embarrassed was that the two of them were grabbing the tail of the demonic spear. Huh! Xiao Hua was stunned. This jade hand was obviously a female cultivator. When he turned his head to look, he saw a similarly short and thin woman looking at him with the same stunned expression. This. Xiao Hua wanted to withdraw his hand, but he didn't dare to. He was afraid that if he withdrew his hand, the female cultivator would take the devil spear away. Obviously, the female cultivator also had the same idea. She placed one hand on the devil spear and stared at Xiao Hua, unwilling to admit defeat. Fellow Taoist. Xiao Hua coughed. He looked at the somewhat pale early-stage foundation establishment female cultivator and said, "Why didn't fellow Taoist bid a moment ago, but instead made a move now?" Fellow Taoist also didn't bid, so why did you make a move now? The female cultivator also questioned. I came too late. Xiao Hua touched his nose with his other hand and smiled bitterly. Then, he looked at the devil spear on the left and said, "There are so many devil spears on this high platform. Why did fellow Taoist choose this one? Why don't you choose something else?" "Yes, there are so many devil spears on this high platform. Why did fellow Taoist choose this one? Why don't you choose something else?" The female cultivator also said. "Alas, Xiao Hua sighed. He suddenly raised his head, looked to the left, and shouted, "Manager, oh?" The female cultivator was stunned. She also raised her eyebrows and looked over, but at this moment, she suddenly felt her hand slip. The devil spear's tail that she was holding tightly was actually forcefully pulled away by Xiao Hua. She naturally grabbed with her hand, and Xiao Hua also felt a great force. She wanted to grab the devil spear's tail, but Xiao Hua used a little force and easily pulled the devil spear's tail away. However, Xiao Hua was still a little surprised. Looking at the thin and unremarkable female cultivator, he didn't expect this female cultivator to have such great strength. The female cultivator didn't see the empty high platform. She knew that she had been fooled. She hurriedly stepped forward, stretched out her hand, and used an extremely beautiful move to snatch the devil spear's tail away. But how could Xiao Hua let her have her way? He raised his left hand and swiftly struck her wrist. At the same time, he slapped his storage bag. Pa! Xiao Hua's fist struck the female cultivator's hand, which had quickly turned into a palm. At the same time, the devil spear's tail also disappeared from his hand. You! The female cultivator was stunned for a moment, but then her face turned as cold as ice. She coldly said, "Are you still a man? Is this how you treat a female cultivator?" "Of course I'm a man." I's dual cultivation partner was the clearest about this. "Fellow Taoist doesn't need to worry about me," Xiao Hua said with a smile. "As for the treatment of female cultivators, I don't have enough experience. Please forgive me if I've been rude." "You." The female cultivator said the word "you" again. Then, she looked around and saw that there were already people paying attention to them. She stomped her feet and said angrily, "I already had my eyes on this item. How could you snatch it away from me?" "Oh. How about this?" Xiao Hua nodded. He looked at the high platform and said, "Since the ruler is here, let's let this devil tool bid again. I came late just now. Let's start again." This time, the female cultivator didn't fall for his trick. She sighed and said, "If I had spirit stones, would I have waited until now?" Xiao Hua smiled and pointed at it. "Isn't this the same as the starting price? You could have just bid at that time." The female cultivator looked at Xiao Hua with her starry eyes and nodded slightly. "Fellow Taoist, you really just arrived." Then, she explained, "The current bid is already 50% of the original price. In the previous rounds, it was 90% at the beginning, then 80% until now. I've always been afraid that someone would snatch it away. Now, I can finally afford to bid, but you snatched it away." Moreover, if you snatched it away from me, this item, I'm afraid I'd really have to bid again. The female cultivator said faintly. I've been looking for this item for a long time. I came to Bright City this time precisely for this item. Is this item very important to fellow Daoist? Xiao Hua asked curiously. A trace of vigilance flashed through the female cultivator's eyes, and she asked, if I say it's important, can you give it to me? Xiao Hua shook his head slightly. I don't know yet. At this moment, a brilliance flashed on the high platform, and Zai Qi's figure slowly emerged. Obviously, a new round of bidding was about to begin. Forget it. The female cultivator glared fiercely at Xiao Hua, then turned around and left. Xiao Hua shrugged, took out spirit stones, placed them on a jade plate, and slowly returned to his seat. Zai Qi went up to the high platform and glanced at the things floating around. Almost no one moved, but he remained calm and composed. He formed hand seals, and with a flash of brilliance, all the items fell on the high platform and disappeared. At the same time, the demonic tools on the edge of the high platform also disappeared without a trace. Alright, there's still 10 minutes before the last round of bidding. Fellow Daoist who still wants to consign something for sale, please hurry up. Zai Qi said with a smile. The items consigned by fellow Daoist will be appraised by my Haoming City's dedicated consecrators. It's absolutely fair. However, fellow Daoist must give 10% of the items to my Haoming City. Xiao Hua sat on his seat, listless as he listened to Zai Qi's nonsense. However, his mind was thinking about that female cultivator just now. If this female cultivator was concerned about the demonic tools, it would be normal. But why did she care about the demonic spear's tail? Moreover, this female cultivator's strength isn't ordinary. She's the strongest cultivator I've ever seen. Oh. Xiao Hua thought and placed the demonic spear's tip, shaft, and tail together. Sure enough, there was still a section of the spear's shaft missing. So that's how it is. Xiao Hua realized. This female cultivator should still have a section of the spear shaft, so she wanted to match it with the demonic spear's tail. Oh no, I offended that female cultivator just now. I'm afraid it won't be easy to get the demonic spear shaft. Is there any other fellow Daoist who wants to consign something for sale? Zai Qi finally asked. Xiao Hua's heart suddenly moved. He took out a very damaged magic tool from the storage pouch he got from the golden core cultivator in the Incloud Black Forest and threw it on the table next to him. A brilliance flashed on the table, and the magic tool disappeared. That golden core cultivator must have gone to the Incloud Black Forest to pick up the items. Maybe he even picked them up for a long time. The items in these two storage pouches are strange. The jade slips are easy to understand, but the magic tools are troublesome. No matter how I look at them, I can't figure out their origins. Why don't I ask the Haoming City's consecrators to help me take a look? Xiao Hua thought to himself as he watched the brilliance on the table disappear. Soon, the first items consigned for sale appeared in front of Zai Qi and were placed on several jade plates. Zai Qi pointed his hand and one of the jade plates flew in front of him. Zai Qi opened the silk cloth and scanned it with his divine sense. He laughed. Hee, I knew it. There are still some fellow Taoists who have good things but won't take them out until the last moment. The quality of this magic tool isn't bad. It's not much inferior to the magic tools in the previous auction. Chapter 2064. Soon after, Zai Qi quoted a number of spirit stones according to the price on the jade plate. Then, he gave a simple explanation of the magic tool's function and origin. It's really not bad. Xiao Hua naturally had no interest in this magic tool, but after listening to Zai Qi's tireless explanation of the magic tool's ins and outs, and hearing that the price was appropriate, he couldn't help but nod inwardly. This magic tool obviously caused a small stir. Many foundation establishment cultivators began to slowly bid, and the number of spirit stones increased. This made Xiao Hua puzzled. It can't be, right? No matter what, it's just a magic tool. Everyone here is a foundation establishment cultivator. Even if they don't have one, won't their sect give one? Why must they compete like this? But then, Xiaohua understood. Although the sect would give magic tools, it also depended on the sect. Not to mention the state of Shi's 3 cultivation sects, the Imperial Thunder sect and the Rinsing Flowers sect might be able to give each of them one. But the problem was, what about the other sects? At least Xiaohua knew that the previous Shang Huaming didn't have this strength. Of course, he couldn't rule out the possibility that these foundation establishment cultivators were bidding for these magic tools for their own juniors. Thinking of his juniors, Xiaohua was a bit worried. He had promised his eldest senior brother that he would give Xiang Zhili a great magical ability, but what magical ability? How would he explain it when the time came? Soon after, Zai Qi bid for many other strange things, but Xiaohua didn't care. What he wanted was a cultivation method for refining the body or tempering the bones. His space didn't lack these odds and ends. Alright, this old man has another good thing here. Zai Qi clapped his hands in disappointment. The silk covering the jade plate was removed, and a light cyan jade slip appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Cultivation method? Xiaohua's eyes lit up, and he couldn't help but straighten his back slightly. His movement wasn't obvious, but in the eyes of a certain person, it was clear. This jade slip doesn't record any cultivation method, nor is it about refining tools or creating talismans. Zai Qi looked at the jade slip in his hand and said with a smile. Oh, everyone was disappointed, and Xiaohua even sat down. However, this is also a special item that appeared in my auction today. Zai Qi seemed to be whetting everyone's appetites. After a short pause, he continued, this jade slip contains a description in the Devil Realm's language. This is something that is rarely seen in auctions in Haoming City. Tisk, a cultivator, sneered rudely. Senior, you're exaggerating. What do we not have at the auction in Haoming City? Even if the written descriptions in the demon realm were scarce, what was the use? We are not demonic cultivators, nor can we wield demonic artifacts. What use do we have for this thing? Hee, fellow Taoist, please calm down. Zai Qi looked at the cultivator whose cultivation was lower than his and didn't get angry. He said, I only said that this thing was rare, I didn't mention the price. Oh. However, as the manager spoke, he was a bit stunned. He scratched his head and said self-deprecatingly, I was wrong. This item was actually set by the fellow Taoist who put it up for sale. Huh, and the price isn't low. As he spoke, the Chancellor spoke a number that was definitely not low. Is there something wrong with this guy? The cultivator who spoke muttered, which foundation establishment cultivator would take out so many spirit stones for this thing? However, before he could finish speaking, a voice said, I want it. When everyone's divine senses swept over, they found that the person who spoke was Xiaohua. At this moment, Xiaohua was overjoyed. It was really like someone giving him a pillow when he was feeling sleepy. Wasn't he lacking a jade slip that could read thousands of characters in the demon realm? Sick. Sick. When the cultivator saw that an early-stage foundation establishment cultivator like him actually stood up to bid, he could only shake his head and sit down. Xiaohua stood there with a smile. He was a bit impatient. He knew very well that although the price of the spirit stones just now was lower than the previous magic tools and medicinal pills, it was definitely not low for this kind of almost useless jade slip. It could even be said to be very high. Who would bid against him for this? Moreover, Xiaohua didn't think that there were many cultivators present who had more spirit stones in their storage pouches than he did. However, without waiting for him to stand for a moment, without waiting for the Chancellor to ask another question, he heard a clear voice laughing not far away. Sure enough, fellow Taoist knows his stuff. I have no choice but to raise the price. Huh. It's actually that female cultivator just now. Xiaohua was stunned at first, but after a sweep with his divine sense, he immediately understood. This female cultivator also wants the demon tool, so of course she wants this jade slip. Immediately, Xiaohua raised the price without hesitation. And that female cultivator also seemed to be determined. She added spirit stones bit by bit. In less than half a cup of tea's time, the price of this jade slip had reached an extremely high level. However, Xiaohua was still indifferent. This number of spirit stones was still very low. However, hearing that female cultivator's calm and unruffled bid, Xiaohua was a bit bewildered. He secretly said, just now, this female cultivator said that she didn't have many spirit stones and wanted to take advantage of the situation to get the demon spear shaft. How come she has spirit stones now? Could it be that she was lying to me? Alas, I don't have many spirit stones left. At this time, that female cultivator said regretfully, I can only add up to this point. If fellow Taoist raises the price again, I can only give up. Xiaohua frowned, rolled his eyes, and cupped his hands. So it's like this. As the saying goes, a good man doesn't fight with a woman. Since that's the case, I can't snatch what you like even more. I won't raise the price. This jade slip belongs to fellow Taoist. Ah. The female cultivator obviously didn't expect Xiaohua to give up so easily. She was astonished, stamping her feet, and asked, how can you not raise the price? Xiaohua laughed, and everyone else also laughed. I gave this jade slip to you, and you're actually not happy? You even want I to raise the price? What kind of logic is this? That female cultivator said, a few times, but she was also helpless and could only sit down. All right. This item belongs to this fellow Taoist. Zai Qi smiled and pointed his finger. But right after that, Zai Qi was also a little stunned. However, a faint smile appeared on the corner of his mouth, and he clapped his hand. That jade slip disappeared, but a light flashed next to the female cultivator. Obviously, it was transferred to the female cultivator's table. Soon after, Zai Qi waved his hand, and a jade bottle appeared in midair. Zai Qi glanced at it and was even more surprised. He said with a smile, strange things happen every year, but this year, my Haoming city has the most. This foundation building pill has become increasingly rare in the auction in recent years, just like the exquisite grass used to concoct foundation building pills. It's getting rarer every year. Every sect, and even every cultivator, treasures this item so that they can keep it for their own disciples. The previous 2 bottles of foundation building pills already caused a sensation, and in the last round of the auction, the penultimate item to be auctioned is actually a foundation building pill? Foundation building pill, it's really a foundation building pill? Who would still take it out? Several cultivators around Xiaohua unconsciously stood up. Huh? Why do you say that? Xiaohua was stunned. He remembered that when he participated in the auction last time, foundation building pills were indeed rare, but it seemed that they weren't this rare. Listening to Zai Qi's tone, the number of foundation building pills had actually become fewer and fewer in the past 10 years. Alright, these are 2 foundation building pills. The starting price is 100 top-grade spirit stones. Zai Qi stated the starting price that Xiaohua knew was 5 times the starting price. Good. Xiaohua immediately understood. No wonder when he entered Haoming City that day and gave Bai Fengliang several foundation building pills, that guy's face was filled with gratitude. It turned out, in the current cultivation world, foundation building pills were actually so rare. 150. Xiaohua had just started to sigh with emotion when the price of foundation building pills soared by 50%. Crazy. Xiaohua shook his head and sat steadily on his seat. Looking at everyone's eagerness, he had other plans in his mind. In the end, the 2 foundation building pills were sold for 200 top-grade spirit stones. This made many foundation building cultivators sigh. Fellow Taoist. Xiaohua thought for a moment and cupped his hands towards the cultivator beside him. I don't quite understand. Why are these foundation building pills so precious? When did fellow Taoist build his foundation? That cultivator didn't answer but asked instead. I'm ashamed. It's already been 40 years. Xiaohua smiled apologetically. Fellow Taoist hasn't taken in a disciple yet, right? That's right. That's right. The Chancellor, who was on the high platform, ignored Xiao Hua's thoughts and said loudly, generally speaking, the consecrators of the Haoming city will save the most valuable items for last. I'm afraid that the foundation building elixir just now was done by them. Chapter 2065. Come, let's see what the final item is. Zai Qi lifted the silk cloth and glanced at the jade slip on the jade plate. He was stunned. After a moment of hesitation, he sent a voice transmission to someone behind him. After confirming, he smiled bitterly and said, "Even I was surprised by this item. I've made a fool of myself." Then, he picked up the jade slip, looked at it a few times, and said, "Allow this poor Taoist to keep everyone guessing. What is this? Huh? Could it be that this item has an origin?" A cultivator stood up and smiled. "Can I take a look?" "Of course." Zai Qi waved his hand, and the jade plate flew to the cultivator. The cultivator picked up the rhombus-shaped magic tool with 4 missing corners and pondered for a long time. He shook his head and said, "The spiritual energy fluctuations in this item are weak. It must be seriously damaged. It will take a lot of effort to repair it. Moreover, one's spiritual sense can only see the surface. It seems to be able to penetrate it, but there's a faint barrier that prevents it from entering. I can't see what kind of magic tool it is." The other cultivators were also very interested, but they couldn't see any clues. "Let me take a look." A cultivator in a mesmerizing robe said in a deep voice. "Let me take a look first." Similarly, another mesmerizing robe cultivator sitting on the other side said in unison. Then, the first mesmerizing robe cultivator waved his hand, and the jade plate flew in his direction. It seemed like it was about to break free from Zai Qi's control. At the same time, the other mesmerizing robe cultivator stretched out his hand and made a grabbing motion. The jade plate also flew in his direction. "Seniors." Zai Qi frowned and said, "Please let go. This item has been appraised by our Haoming city's consecrators. It's a famous magic tool from 1,000 years ago called the Mist Puppet. If you like it, please bid." "What? A magic tool?" Xiao Hua was stunned. Obviously, this was the so-called magic tool he threw into the transportation array on the table. Mist Puppet? This is the Mist Puppet that is said to be able to create an illusion array on its own? A cultivator looked at the damaged Mist Puppet in disbelief. "That's right." The Zai Qi nodded. "However, the corrosion on its surface is particularly severe. Not only does it look completely different from before, even the outer formation has been destroyed. According to the consecrator's speculation, it should be because the owner of the Black Mist tree had died in the Black Mist forest, and the Black Mist tree had been corroded by the Black Mist sand for thousands of years. It is also because of this that Imo Bao, who has not been seen in the Black Forest for thousands of years, has blown this item out of the Black Forest, allowing it to see the light of day again. Since it's the Wu Qi, this poor Taoist won't say too much about how powerful it is. The core of this magic treasure is as good as new. If any fellow Taoist can repair it, it will be able to regain the power of the Wu Qi from 1,000 years ago." As the Chancellor spoke, he took the Wu Qi into his hand and reported a number of spirit stones that shocked Xiao Hua. That's right, this was a transcendent artifact. Although it was damaged, its core was still intact. It was much more useful than those fragments and so on. How could it not have a good starting price? Hearing the number of spirit stones, the stingy Xiao Hua was somewhat regretful. He had only thought this was an ordinary magic tool. However, he immediately laughed inwardly. There are many similar items in this little master space. I'll take one out and test it out. I'll know that these things have their origins. In the future, I'll slowly find out how to use them. At worst, I'll take it out and bid for some spirit stones. That's better than not knowing its value, right? The Mist Puppet was indeed famous. Very quickly, the price reached a very high price. The crowd of Foundation establishment cultivators stopped and watched the two cultivators that the Chancellor called seniors bid. After the time it took to brew a cup of tea, the mist puppet was finally won by the second mist puppet cultivator. All right, fellow Taoists. After the mist puppet cultivator delivered the spirit stones, the Chancellor clapped his hand. The entire hall flashed with brilliance, and all the cultivators' tables lit up. A storage pouch naturally appeared on Xiaohua's table. Xiaohua reached out and put it into his bosom. After the brilliance flashed, the Chancellor said, "This time, the auction for Foundation establishment cultivators has come to an end. Thank you, fellow Taoists, for coming to my Haoming city. 5 years later, my Haoming city will still hold the auction for Foundation establishment cultivators. I welcome fellow Taoists to come again. In addition, fellow Taoists who consigned the mist puppet cultivators, your spirit stones have already been delivered. Please check and accept them. If there's anything inappropriate, please don't leave the auction. My Haoming city will help you deal with it." Immediately, the entire high platform radiated rays of light in all directions. All kinds of brilliance flashed, and rainbow bridges stretched out from the high platform to the feet of the cultivators. "Let's go." Xiaohua sighed inwardly. He floated onto the nearest rainbow bridge, only to see the rainbow bridge slowly shrink. At this moment, Xiaohua heard a crisp and urgent voice say, "Fellow Taoist, please wait." Xiaohua turned around and saw that thin and weak-looking female cultivator. She was waving at him and seemed to want to fly over. Unfortunately, before she could fly, the Chancellor, who had disappeared a moment ago, appeared in front of her. He seemed to be looking for her. "Fellow Taoist, please wait for me outside. I have something to discuss with fellow Taoist." How would I know about these things? Only a skilled craftsman like Xiao, in the clan can look up the ancient records in the clan. Sigh, let's go. Xiao sighed and said, "Not only did we not get that demonic spear, but we also lost some spirit stones. In this way, there are some things that can't be exchanged." I understand now. That male cultivator slapped his forehead and said, Brother Ming, what did you think of?" Xiao asked curiously. The male cultivator said naively, "Since that guy snatched the demonic spear's tail from you, then he might have seen something. Maybe he also has the same broken spear as you." Xiao was speechless. Her thoughts were naturally the same as Xiaohua's. She also thought of the other party's situation, which was why she was determined to find Xiaohua. "Let's go, Brother Ming. Let's go to the shops in Haoming City and see if there's anything that can be exchanged," Xiao said indifferently. A moment after Xiaohua and the others left, Yanyu flew over and very familiarly walked in front of the city guard. He quietly stuffed a few spirit stones into the guard's hand and whispered a few words. A trace of embarrassment appeared on the city guard's face, but after thinking for a moment, he answered with a smile. Hearing this, Yanyu's face showed a satisfied expression. Soon after, he handed over a few more spirit stones. Xiaohua flew into the area where the aura refining cultivators lived. Without waiting for the city guard to come over, just like before, several aura refining cultivators came over to strike up a conversation. Xiaohua smiled and said, "I want to go to Yutian Paradise. Who among you knows?" Sure enough, a seemingly quick-witted aura refining cultivator quickly raised his hand and said, "Senior, this junior knows." Good, you take I there. Senior, please." After saying that aura refining cultivator led the way and flew up first. After flying for several breaths, that aura refining cultivator asked cautiously, "Senior, what do you always want to go to Yutian Paradise to look for?" Xiaohua smiled and said, "Are you very familiar with Yutian Paradise?" Hearing Xiaohua's response, a smile appeared on that cultivator's face and he answered, "Yutian Paradise is specially set up by Haoming City for us aura refining cultivators. It's for our convenience." Soon after, he explained in detail, "Senior, you must also know that Haoming City holds auctions of different scales every 5 years, every 10 years, and even every 100 years. However, we aura refining cultivators have a rather urgent need for medicinal pills, yellow talismans, spiritual plants, and so on. We can't compare to seniors who have a long lifespan, so we can wait. However, if it's an ordinary shop, it's difficult to distinguish the quality and authenticity of these things. It's even possible that we'll be targeted by bystanders, which could lead to disaster. Therefore, Humming City opened this Yuqian paradise in the residences of aura refining cultivators. It specializes in purchasing medicinal pills, spiritual plants, and even cultivation methods from aura refining cultivators and reselling them to aura refining cultivators who need them. To be honest, this Yuqian paradise is a shop exclusively run by Humming City. Junior. Hee, I don't go there often. The prices of the things there are quite high, and Junior often doesn't have enough spirit stones. Xiaohua originally wanted to ask more about the details of Yuqian paradise, but after hearing that this cultivator didn't go there often, he knew that even if he asked, it would only be hearsay. He might as well go there himself, so he didn't ask any more. On the contrary, Xiaohua no longer asked about the cultivator. He was a little anxious and racked his brains to talk about some interesting things he heard. However, Xiaohua didn't find these useful. After all, Xiaohua was passing by Humming City, and what that cultivator said wasn't what he wanted to know at all. By the way, do you know the rock border sect of the Lian state? Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat, and he asked, are there any disciples of their sect in Humming City? Well. The cultivator looked awkward and smiled apologetically. Senior, I seem to have heard of this cultivation sect, but I've never heard of any of their disciples traveling in Humming City. Xiaohua didn't comment. Senior, this is Yuqian paradise. The aura refining cultivator stopped in midair, pointed at a rather large immortal's cave in front of them, and smiled apologetically. Junior, won't accompany Senior inside. Please forgive me. Seeing that the immortal's cave was guarded by Humming City's city guards and that there were many cultivators going in and out, including both aura refining and foundation building cultivators, Xiaohua nodded and said, thank you for your trouble. After saying that, he flew towards the immortal's cave, ignoring the cultivator. Senior. That cultivator was a little anxious, but he didn't dare to speak loudly. Ha ha ha, Xiaohua laughed and waved his hand, causing several spirit stones to fly towards the cultivator. Thank you, Senior. The regret in the cultivator's eyes turned into surprise. He quickly took the spirit stones and bowed to express his gratitude. When Xiaohua landed in front of Yuqian paradise, he saw the city guard quickly salute him. Several aura refining cultivators going in and out also stopped and respectfully invited Xiaohua to enter. Xiaohua was different from the other foundation building cultivators who held their heads high. He nodded slightly at those cultivators and city guards before quickly walking in. Oh, it's so big. You're really considerate. Xiaohua entered the immortal's cave and saw that the huge immortal's cave was divided into several floors. There were many steps on the stone walls leading to different heights, and there were similar shops lined up at each height. Apart from the shops, there were no shop assistants to welcome customers. Everything was the same as the shops Xiaohua had seen before. Senior, what are you looking for? A cultivator wearing a brand new robe stepped forward and asked respectfully. Junior is Humming City's city guard. I'm here to guide Senior and fellow Taoists in this immortal's cave. Oh, I want to see aura refining cultivation methods. Where are they? Xiaohua knew that the things here had all been appraised by Humming City's consecrators, so the possibility of him encountering rare things wasn't high. Therefore, he went straight to the point and asked. The city guard didn't find it strange and said with a smile, Senior, please go to the 4th floor. There are cultivation methods required by aura refining cultivators there. I hope Senior will be satisfied. Do you need Junior to take you there? Oh. Is there really even cultivation methods for aura refining? Xiaohua was slightly surprised. He naturally thought of his predicament back then when he didn't have any cultivation methods. Then, he shook his head and said, No need, I will go there myself. Senior, please. The city guard smiled and pointed in the direction to the fourth floor. Xiao Hua was full of curiosity when he went up to the fourth floor. He randomly found a shop and went in. "Senior, what kind of cultivation methods do you need?" The person who greeted him was still the same city guard in the same robe. Xiao Hua didn't say anything. Instead, he looked up and sized up this shop. He saw that this shop was an oval-shaped space that was more than 100 feet in size. It was divided into dozens of partitions, and each partition had a city guard standing straight as if they were responsible for their own duties. Xiao Hua was standing inside the shop, facing a crescent-shaped table with several balls of different colors on it. The city guard who greeted him was standing in front of these balls. "What kind of cultivation methods do you have here?" Xiao Hua asked in return. He was indeed very curious about the cultivation methods he could buy here. "Senior, please know. The cultivation methods in my Yutian paradise are roughly divided into 5 categories: metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. Senior, please tell Junior what attribute Senior's nephew is, so that Junior can recommend different cultivation methods for Senior." The city guard was still very respectful. "Yes, my nephew is of the earth attribute," Xiao Hua replied. Chapter 2067. Earth attribute cultivation methods are the most abundant. "Senior, please." The city guard led Xiao Hua to a partition and clapped his hand. A brilliant light flashed on the table inside the partition, and a jade slip appeared. The city guard picked it up, handed it to Xiao Hua, and said, "Senior, please take a look." "Which one do you need?" Xiao Hua took the jade slip and saw that it wasn't a cultivation method, but the names of various cultivation methods. There were actually thousands of them. Xiao Hua sucked in a breath of cold air. He had seen many aura refining cultivation methods in the Imperial Thunder sect, but that was the Imperial Thunder sect, a famous cultivation sect in the state of Shi. Moreover, those aura refining cultivation methods weren't passed on to outsiders and could only be cultivated by the disciples of the Imperial Thunder sect. This Haoming city actually put thousands of aura refining cultivation methods for sale here, which really shocked Xiao Hua. But then, Xiao Hua's heart was moved again, and he asked with a smile, "What's the highest level of cultivation method in here?" Sure enough, as Xiao Hua expected, the city guard answered, "At most, the 4th level of the aura refining realm." "Does Senior want to take a look?" "How many spirit stones do you need?" Xiao Hua asked calmly. The city guard rolled his eyes and said with a smile, "Since Senior came to buy, then you must have a heart. Junior won't be polite and will give Senior the most practical price." As he said that, he whispered to Xiao Hua and told him a number that made Xiao Hua dumbfounded. "Ah, so high." Xiao Hua pretended to exaggerate. "This number. I can bid for a damaged magic weapon." The city guard wasn't nervous at all and said with a smile, "Senior must be joking with Junior. How could a damaged magic weapon have such a price? Moreover, this is a cultivation method. As long as Senior's nephew has the aptitude, he can immediately step into the ranks of cultivators and be able to do whatever he wants in the Dawn Rain continent like Senior." Xiao Hua didn't express his opinion. Such a price for a cultivation method was reasonable. Just as the city guard said, this was a cultivation method, which was very rare. Since he could buy it with spirit stones, wouldn't it be much more convenient than looking for it like a headless fly? "Are there any higher level techniques?" Xiao Hua frowned. The city guard hesitated for a moment before he smiled apologetically and said, "I'll let you know, Senior. The Jade Field Grotto Heaven in Haoming City only has this kind of cultivation technique. As for higher level cultivation techniques, you'll have to look for them elsewhere." Xiao Hua nodded. Just as he was about to ask if there were any body refining and bone tempering techniques, a voice came from behind him. "Fellow Daoist, may I ask, is this the place to collect cultivation techniques?" A timid voice sounded out, "I have here an unknown body refining cultivation method. I don't know how many spirit stones can be produced here. Or perhaps you can exchange it for some other chi refining technique?" Xiao Hua was slightly taken aback. When he turned his head to look, he saw a short qi refining cultivator with a slightly pale face standing at the entrance of the shop. The cultivator was around the fourth layer of the qi refining realm. His eyes darted around and his expression was somewhat flustered, as if he was very shy. Senior. The city guard accompanying Xiao Hua whispered, but Xiao Hua waved his hand, indicating that he shouldn't speak. The city guard had no choice but to accompany Xiao Hua, not daring to speak. Fellow Taoist. The city guard closest to the shop naturally walked over quickly and asked warmly, "May I know where fellow Taoist's cultivation technique is? We'll have to ask the consecrator to come over and appraise it before we can give you a corresponding price to exchange for other cultivation techniques." The cultivator bit his lip and asked, "It said that the Jade Field Grotto Heaven only has cultivation techniques up to the fourth layer of the Qi refining realm. What I need is a cultivation technique that leads directly to the foundation building realm. May I know if the Jade Field Grotto Heaven has it? That depends on how good fellow Taoist's body refining technique is." The city guard smiled and said, "If it's rare, the consecrator will give a suggestion, and fellow Taoist's request will certainly be satisfied. Where is fellow Taoist's cultivation technique?" I just came here to ask." A trace of redness appeared on the cultivator's face. "If Haoming City can satisfy my request, I can bring the cultivation technique over for appraisal. And then I'll have to ask fellow Taoist to bring the body refining technique over first." The city guard wasn't impatient and just dealt with the cultivator patiently. "Oh. All right." The cultivator nodded slightly and turned around to leave without hesitation. Xiao Hua's eyes turned, and he nodded slightly at the city guard accompanying him before hastily chasing after the cultivator. Behind him, various expressions flashed through the eyes of the group of Haoming City's city guards. Some were regretful, some were resentful, and some were angry. However, sympathy was indeed sympathy, but none of them took any further action, even if it was something as trivial as raising their hands to remind the cultivator. Xiao Hua left the shop and unexpectedly didn't see the cultivator. Xiao Hua hastily released his divine sense and looked around. Huh? That guy actually slipped away so quickly? It seems that it wasn't a trap. Xiao Hua narrowed his eyes and thought to himself pensively. He had just come to the Jade Field Grotto Heaven to look for a body refining technique, and an Qi refining cultivator came to sell a similar cultivation technique. This couldn't help but arouse his suspicion. However, he didn't regret not being able to see the Qi refining cultivator. After all, what he was looking for was a bone tempering technique. The body refining technique was just an excuse. It seems that I can't have high hopes for this Jade Field Grotto Heaven. Xiao Hua had seen this shop before and knew that Haoming City was behind it. For Qi refining cultivators, the Jade Field Grotto Heaven might be an excellent place, but for foundation building cultivators like him, it probably didn't have any real meaning. With that thought in mind, Xiao Hua glanced at the shop and walked towards the fifth floor. Just as he reached the fifth floor, he saw the thin and weak cultivator from before still in a hurry, as if he had ulterior motives. Oh, so he came to the fifth floor to inquire. Xiao Hua suddenly understood. Just now, his divine sense was only focused on looking down, but he didn't expect the cultivator to actually go to the fifth floor. "Greetings, Senior." The cultivator's divine sense swept past Xiao Hua and he promptly stood to the side respectfully, bowing and saluting as he waited for Xiao Hua to go first. Xiao Hua walked in front of the cultivator, stopped, and looked at the cultivator from head to toe. Under Xiao Hua's gaze, the cultivator was abnormally embarrassed. His hands slightly shrunk into his Taoist robe, and when his eyes met Xiao Hua's gaze, he felt as if he was being stabbed, and he hastily avoided it. "Say, Senior." The cultivator timidly probed, "Is there something you need, Senior?" This old man has something to ask you." Xiao Hua said amiably. "Senior." The cultivator gathered his courage and said, "Is there anything this junior can help you with?" "Oh, just now, this old man heard you mention a nameless body refining technique in the shop. Can you let this old man take a look?" Xiao Hua said with a smile, this old man is looking for a body refining technique for my nephew. If this technique is suitable, this old man won't be stingy with any spirit stones. Ah. A trace of vigilance immediately appeared on the cultivator's face. His eyes moved up and down, sizing up Xiaohua for a long time before he said in a low voice, "How many spirit stones can senior pay? If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Qidian. Come to vote for it." Chapter 2068. Hee, as long as it's a suitable cultivation technique, I can definitely satisfy you. I can even give you a suitable qi refinement cultivation technique. Xiaohua said with a smile. Seeing a trace of disappointment in the cultivator's eyes, Xiaohua smiled and untied the storage pouch at his waist. He handed it to the cultivator and said, "Take a look. Are these spirit stones to your satisfaction?" The cultivator took the storage pouch and scanned it with his divine sense. Joy and slight greed appeared in his eyes. The hand that was holding the storage pouch even shrank a few times. He said anxiously, "Of course. I'm satisfied." "That's good. Where's your cultivation technique? Let me take a look." Xiaohua nodded slightly. "This." The cultivator smiled apologetically and said, "I do have a body refining cultivation technique, but... Senior, do you think I can carry it with me in the storage pouch?" Xiaohua frowned. He understood why the cultivator was just asking in the shop and didn't do anything. "Forget it," Xiaohua flicked his sleeve and reached out to take the storage pouch. At this moment, the cultivator stretched out the storage pouch and reluctantly shrank it back. He smiled apologetically and said, "Senior, I left the cultivation technique outside Haoming City. If you're willing, can you follow me?" But at this point, the cultivator thought of something and his face turned a little pale. "What? You actually dare to ask me to follow you outside Haoming City?" Xiaohua looked at the cultivator with interest. "Aren't you afraid I'll kill you?" The cultivator was indeed afraid and handed the storage pouch over. However, just as Xiaohua took the storage pouch, the cultivator shrank his hand again. He gritted his teeth and said, "Senior, can you wait for me here? I'll give you the cultivation technique jade slip right away." Xiaohua smiled as he looked at the cultivator and pointed at the storage bag. "This old man can wait here, but you'll have to return the storage bag to this old man." "Forget it." The cultivator gritted his teeth, put the storage pouch in front of his eyes, and said, "I've always been very good at judging people. Senior has talked to me for so long, and you're not annoyed at all. Instead, you're very modest, so I trust you. You're definitely not the kind of senior who forgets righteousness for profit and bullies me at will." And Xiaohua nodded slightly, retracted his hand, and said, "You can take the storage pouch, but this old man still wants to see your body refinement technique. If it's suitable, you can take these spirit stones. If it's not suitable, this old man will still take them back." "Yes, I understand. Junior will definitely satisfy Senior." That cultivator's face flushed red as he hurriedly said without thinking, "Let's go, lead the way." Xiaohua said, "Senior, please." The cultivator carefully put away the storage pouch, raised his hand, and led the way. The two of them left the Yutian cave and quickly left the mountain range. The cultivator stuck a flying talisman on his body and led the way in front. Xiaohua followed behind the cultivator at a moderate pace. Along the way, many cultivators saluted Xiaohua very respectfully with different expressions in their eyes. Obviously, they also had different guesses about the two of them. After leaving the mountain range of Haoming City, they arrived at the prosperous area surrounded by the mountain range. It was where all the cultivation sect's shops and strongholds were located in Haoming City. At the same time, there were also many ordinary inns. Xiaohua originally thought that the aura refining cultivator would stay in an ordinary inn and that the body refining jade slip would also be placed in the inn. Unexpectedly, the aura refining cultivator flew straight through the largest prosperous area and headed straight out of Haoming City. "Huh?" Xiaohua's expression remained unchanged, but there was a thoughtful look in his eyes. At this moment, the cultivator turned around and smiled apologetically. I just came to Haoming City a few days ago and missed the auction. Moreover, the spirit stones in my bag were really limited, so I couldn't bear to spend them on these inns. Therefore, I hid the jade slip and other important things outside the city. And, let's go. Xiao Hua smiled. If you're not afraid, why should I be afraid? Yes, a hint of panic flashed in the cultivator's eyes. He seemed to be afraid of Xiao Hua, so he lowered his head and didn't say anything else. After leaving Haoming City, the cultivator kept heading west, which was different from the direction Xiao Hua had entered Haoming City. The surrounding scenery was also very different. At first, there were lush vegetation, but soon, the mountain terrain became dangerous. The vegetation also withered, and the dead trees began to point toward the sky. Senior, don't worry. I hid the storage bag in a mountain stream. We'll be there soon. The cultivator who had been silent finally spoke again. Since you're afraid that the cultivation method will be robbed, you should find a safe place. Wouldn't it be easier for someone to take it away if you put it here? Xiao Hua said with a smile. I feel that, you seem to have some bad intentions towards me. Alas, senior, you don't know. I'm an itinerant cultivator. I'm often robbed by other cultivators, so I have to be careful. The cultivator smiled bitterly. According to my experience, it's much safer to put it here than to keep it on me. As they spoke, they had already crossed a foothill and saw a spacious place next to a gurgling stream. Senior, please wait a moment, the cultivator turned around and smiled shyly. He pointed at his feet and said, I hid the storage bag there. And go and get it. Xiao Hua stopped in mid-air and said indifferently. The cultivator's figure slowly descended and approached the stream, but he wasn't in a hurry to land. Instead, he tilted his head slightly and peeked behind him from the corner of his eye. It didn't matter if the cultivator didn't look, but when he looked, he was stunned. There was no one at the place where Xiao Hua was. The cultivator was slightly stunned and quickly turned around to look. I'm here. Xiao Hua's voice sounded above the cultivator's head. Why are you looking for me instead of getting the storage bag? The cultivator's face showed a trace of redness, and there was even a trace of panic. Say. Senior, humph, Xiao Hua flicked his large sleeve, and a swift and fierce force was generated, covering the cultivator. Senior, how can you go back on your word? The cultivator sensed something was wrong and his figure unexpectedly flew up. He did his best to dodge while speaking in a flustered and exasperated manner. Ha ha ha, Xiao Hua's figure followed the cultivator, neither too far nor too close. The force of the universe in the sleeve was also evenly distributed. He chuckled and said, I just said I was looking for a body-tempering cultivation method, and you delivered yourself to my door. Moreover, I'm a foundation establishment cultivator, and you actually let me follow you without worry. Don't you think I'll be suspicious? Marshal Uncle Yen. Quickly save this brat. When the cultivator heard this, he was really anxious. Seeing that he couldn't dodge Xiao Hua's magic power, he hurriedly shouted for help. Xiao Hua wore a cold smile, and his divine sense swept over the foothill and the stream surroundings. Ha ha ha, Xiao Hua, as expected, you're exceptionally cunning. You even saw through my arrangements. With a loud laugh, a light flashed on a rock beside the foothill, and Yen Yu's figure flashed out. However, since you've fallen into my trap, even if you've broken through to the middle stage of foundation establishment, how can you escape my wrath? What? You don't want this disciple's life anymore? Xiao Hua's mouth had a smile that wasn't a smile. His hand tightened, and the cultivator was held in Xiao Hua's hand like a little chick. Marshal Uncle Yen, quickly. Quickly save this brat. The cultivator struggled with all his might, and said anxiously, Senior, you promised that you absolutely wouldn't harm this brat's life. Marshal Uncle Yen? Xiao Hua asked indifferently. I've never seen fellow Daoist Yen before, and I don't know when I've offended fellow Daoist Yen. You actually set up a formation here to deal with me? Immediately, Xiao Hua's gaze swept over his surroundings again. Oh. You can actually see through these 4 forbidden formations? Yan Yu was somewhat astonished, but then he snorted coldly and said, even if you can see through the formation, what can you do? Heaven's net has a long arm, but nothing escapes. You killed my Yen clan's direct descendant back then, and now you've fallen into my hands. Do you still expect us Foundation establishment cultivators to compare with the motley crew of the Heavenly Demon Sect? Yen clan? Heavenly Demon Sect? Xiao Hua's expression changed. You are. At this time, Yan Yu waved his hand and took out a triangular formation flag. With a light wave, the figures of Xuanyan schools Xie Ming, Qian Han and Liang Yu appeared on the other 4 sides of Xiao Hua, beside the foothills and the stream. Oh, so it's fellow Daoist from Xuanyan school. Seeing Xie Ming and Qian Han, Xiao Hua came to a realization. You're Yan Li, the direct descendant of Xuanyan school, right? That's right, it's me. A trace of malevolence flashed across Yan Yu's face. You and that little girl from the Kai clan actually dared to scheme against my Yen clan's nephew. This old man's only blood relative actually died in your hands. If this old man doesn't kill you with his own hands, how can this old man's wrath be appeased? Avenging a descendant of your blood relative? Xiao Hua sneered. Looking at the cultivator in his hand, he asked, you delivered a disciple of Xuanyan school to this Xiao. Is this disciple's life not worth his life? Only your Yen clan's disciple's life is precious? Moreover, do you think this Xiao doesn't know what your goal is? Ha ha ha, Yan Yu laughed heartily. This disciple is a disciple of Xuanyan school. He needs this old man's help, so it's normal for this old man to make him do things. As for his life and death, it's in your hands. If you kill him, you'll be offending my Xuanyan school. This is different from killing my Wei. Different? Xiao Hua sneered at the aura refining cultivator. If you want to blame someone, blame your master for not caring about your life and death. Since you dared to get involved with this Xiao, don't think you'll be able to return alive. Senior, please spare. The aura refining cultivator was extremely terrified, hastily begging for mercy. Unfortunately, Xiao Hua's hand still slightly exerted force. With a light crack, the cultivator's neck tilted, and he was crushed to death by Xiao Hua. Following a wave of Xiao Hua's hand, the corpse fell to the ground. Ha ha ha, Xiao Hua laughed heartily. Old dog Yan, are you satisfied now? Can you legitimately kill me, a disciple of the Imperial Thunder Sect? Yan Yu's complexion slightly changed. He snorted coldly and said, that's right. You made a move to kill my Xuanyan school's aura refining disciple, using the strong to bully the weak. I am a Foundation establishment cultivator of Xuanyan school. How can I not avenge my Xuanyan school's disciple? How can I not restore my Xuanyan school's face? In the future, even if this matter were to spread out, who would be able to say this old man's shortcomings? Chapter 2069. Yes, that's right. Xiao Hua smiled, but, do you think this matter can be spread? Ha ha ha, Yan Yu laughed, yes, do you think this matter can be spread? As he spoke, Yan Yu's face revealed a sinister expression. He waved the formation flag in his hand, and a dozen faint spiritual energy fluctuations flashed, shooting towards Liang Yu and the other 2. Then, 4 ripples of spiritual energy fluctuated with the 4 of them as the center, quickly controlling an area of several dozen feet around Xiao Hua. A powerful force pressed down on Xiao Hua from above. At the same time, the spiritual energy in Xiao Hua's body was also suppressed, as if it was frozen. It actually showed signs of solidifying. Ouch! Xiao Hua was shocked, his face slightly pale, and his figure fell down. Then, Xiao Hua seemed to be struggling, flying obliquely, wanting to fly in the direction of the stream. Ha ha ha, you still want to fly out of the 4 forbidden arrays? Yan Yu laughed sinisterly, waved the formation flag, and said, Senior brother Jia, come and help me. As Yan Yu waved the formation flag, Jia Ming's figure suddenly flew up, clapped his hand, and took out a small wooden dragon. Its shape was extremely similar to Jiang Zhucheng's. Go, under the urging of Dan Hanming's magic power, that wooden dragon instantly transformed into a light that was the size of a small dragon. It slightly twisted in midair, and with a clear roar, it pounced towards Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua was in a difficult situation at this time. His figure was unstable, and at the same time, he clapped his hand, and the cloud-suppressing seal flew out crookedly, and the bronze brilliance on it slightly bloomed. However, that scattered light was obviously suppressed by the 4 forbidden arrays, and it wasn't as bright as before. Following Xiao Hua's finger, the cloud-suppressing seal seemed to be moving against the water, extremely slowly, and smashed towards the wooden dragon. Pang! A clear sound rang out, and the wooden dragon hit the cloud-suppressing seal. The cloud-suppressing seal was slightly crooked, and was actually blocked to the side. The wooden dragon only paused for a moment, and a lively brilliance overflowed, hovering above the cloud-suppressing seal, entangling it. Then, under Jie Ming's control, it dragged the cloud-suppressing seal to the side. The cloud-suppressing seal, on the other hand, hummed softly, as if it was trying its best to break free from the wooden dragon's shackles and forcefully flew in the direction where Qian Han was standing. Humph! What Imperial Thunder Sect's disciple who killed a cultivator of the same level as him? Seeing this situation, Yan Yu's heart calmed down, and he sneered. This old man spent an extremely large amount of spirit stones and spent an extremely great amount of effort to set up such a formation. Just the 4 of us Foundation Establishment cultivators are sufficient to kill this beast. Then, he waved the formation flag and shouted, "Senior Brother Qian, let's put in more effort and end the battle quickly. Don't create more trouble." Following the movement of Yan Yu's formation flag, the sealing power of the formation in front of Qian Han lessened. Qian Han clapped his hand and his magic tool, the jade flute, flew into the air. The jade flute was originally the size of a palm, but when it flew into the air, it became a few feet long. A series of woo-woo sounds came from the jade flute. The sound waves surrounded Xiao Hua's surroundings and rushed straight into his mind. Hiss! Xiao Hua originally looked like he was trying his best to support himself. As a result, his eyebrows furrowed even more. His 2 hands involuntarily rose up, as if he wanted to cover his ears. Stupid to the extreme. Qian Han sneered. His 10 fingers continuously moved, as if they were really touching the jade flute. Different sounds rose and fell one after another, truly like invisible arrows piercing into Xiao Hua's ears. At the same time, under Jie Ming's command, the wooden dragon dragged the cloud-suppressing seal down a few feet. It seemed to have lost Xiao Hua's control. It seems this old man doesn't need to make a move, Liang Yu said with a smile. Senior Brother Jie Ming seems to be exaggerating. Jie Ming said with a smile, that day, I saw that this guy's magic power wasn't bad. Although he's only at the peak of the Qi refining realm, there are some areas where he's not inferior to Foundation Establishment cultivators. Perhaps it's because Junior Brother Yan's 4 forbidden formations are powerful. Senior brothers, quickly kill him. Yan Yu's eyes flashed with a trace of pride, and he reminded, don't change things halfway. Even more, we can't let this guy escape. Okay, as Junior Brother Yan wishes. Jie Ming and Qian Han both smiled. Rubbing their hands together, their magic power surged into the 2 magic tools. Not only did the wooden dragon radiate brilliance, wanting to swallow the cloud-suppressing seal into its stomach, but the jade flute once again expanded by 30%. That mournful sound was even more ear-piercing. Ha ha ha, who would have thought that Xiao Hua would not be as flustered as Yan Yu imagined? Instead, he let out a long laugh, and his previous embarrassment was completely swept away. Following Xiao Hua's laughter, Xiao Hua waved his 2 hands, and the 2 sleeves above his Daoist robe, along with his 2 hands, separately struck towards Jie Ming and Qian Han who were already close to him. Moreover, from Xiao Hua's body, an aura that had been suppressed for a long time suddenly erupted along with the surge of magic power. The power of the 4 forbidden formations was unexpectedly unable to suppress this aura, and a backlash force followed the formation and rushed towards the formation flag in Yan Yu's hand. Jie Ming and Qian Han were greatly alarmed. They intuitively felt a confinement force coming from all over their bodies. Chapter 2070. But Xiao Hua didn't seem to care about this. With a slight step, his figure flashed in midair, and an afterimage appeared. He actually circled to Jie Ming's side, and just as he left, Qian Han's great confinement technique also attacked. It just happened to be dodged by him. Seeing that Xiao Hua actually dodged the great confinement technique out of thin air, Qian Han's eyes narrowed, and a bad feeling arose in his heart. Unfortunately, before he could think of anything else, a pair of pitch-black devil hammers also appeared out of thin air, and like shooting stars, they struck Jie Ming's shoulders. With a loud "pa" sound, the light around Jie Ming's body dimmed, and all the protective light was broken. Immediately after, there was a "kacha" sound, and the second hammer followed closely, smashing Jie Ming's shoulders until they caved in. Jie Ming screamed miserably, and his figure fell from midair, dead. How is this possible? Qian Han almost didn't dare to believe his eyes. A middle-stage Foundation establishment cultivator was actually smashed to death by another middle-stage Foundation establishment cultivator using a devil weapon. This was a legend that only existed in the demon-resisting valley. However, without waiting for him to rub his eyes, the pitch-black devil hammers were actually thrown out by Xiao Hua again, and in Qian Han's eyes, they became bigger and bigger, and were precisely aimed at himself. Junior Marshal Brother Yan, save me. Qian Han suddenly felt a burst of coldness in his heart. Even Jie Ming couldn't dodge, how could he possibly escape? At this time, Yin Yu also seemed to have awakened from a dream, and hurriedly waved the already somewhat uncontrollable array flag. Liang Yu, who had long been eager to give it a try, or perhaps he was scared out of his wits, hastily clapped his hands, and a five-colored brilliance flashed, and a fierce qi was born from his hands. A magic weapon that looked like half a pair of scissors was raised in midair by Liang Yu. Qian Han felt a chill like cutting his face, and his heart unconsciously relaxed, knowing that Liang Yu had an extremely powerful magic weapon in his hands. But his heart relaxed, and he also saw the devil hammers flying in front of his eyes suddenly change direction and fly towards Liang Yu's magic weapon, but an even more dangerous feeling was born. Because Xiao Hua's devil hammers went, but Xiao Hua's figure flew several times faster than the devil hammers in front of him. Xiao Hua's smiling face was so magnified, so clear, even Xiao Hua's lightly waving hand was incomparably clear in Qian Han's eyes. True Samadhi fire? But seeing that within the pale green color of Xiao Hua's hand was a wisp of crimson true Samadhi fire, Qian Han did not know whether to rejoice or grieve in his heart. He did not expect that Xiao Hua would quickly wipe his own body and immediately chase after the devil hammer and attack Liang Yu. He could only naturally cry out in alarm. The seemingly weak true Samadhi fire suddenly burned fiercely, instantly igniting the restrictions around him. It was as if all the restrictions and spiritual qi of heaven and earth were helping the true Samadhi fire to burn. Ah! Qian Han screamed in agony as he followed in Jie Ming's footsteps. The true Samadhi fire seemed to have burned through his heart and lungs. His talismans and other items were like paper. Seeing Xiao Hua advance instead of retreating and kill Jie Mingjing and Qian Han with extreme ease, Yan Yu and Liang Yu were greatly shocked in their hearts when they saw that Xiao Hua's previous fear and panic were just a cover-up. Especially Yan Yu, he was the master of the Four Gates restrictive spell formation. From the backlash of the formation flags, he already knew that Xiao Hua's cultivation and magic power had long exceeded his expectations. The rumors he heard that Xiao Hua killed 3 Foundation establishment cultivators were definitely not hearsay. Fortunately, he laid down the formation in advance, otherwise the 4 of them would have already died in Xiao Hua's hands. And at this time, Liang Yu's flying scissors had already been released. The flying scissors were in the shape of a flood dragon, the head of the dragon coiled around the handle of the scissors, the body of the dragon as the scissors. The flying scissors were in the air, just like a flood dragon swinging its tail. Although Liang Yu was afraid, he was also in the formation, so it was difficult for him to sheath his blade. But Liang Yu braced himself and urged his magic power. The flying scissors shone brightly and chopped down towards Xiao Hua's head. Feeling the coldness of the flying scissors and the sharpness of the magic treasure flying scissors, how could Xiao Hua not know the power of this magic treasure? Sucking in a breath of cold air, he pointed his finger at the cloud-suppressing seal. At this time, the cloud-suppressing seal also released a brilliant brilliance. Several clouds flew out from the cloud-suppressing seal and quickly blocked above Xiaohua's head. Swish swish swish, several light sounds rang out in succession. The flying scissors cut through the clouds like a sickle harvesting wheat, easily cutting through the clouds. The cloud-suppressing seal hacked down. Withdraw, seeing the power of the flying scissors, how could Xiaohua dare to let the cloud-suppressing seal touch it? With a wave of his hand, the cloud-suppressing seal quickly flew towards Xiaohua. Xiaohua's other hand brushed, and the devil hammer was taken out again to meet the flying scissors. With a sharp screeching sound, the flying scissors slashed across the devil hammer. Under Xiaohua's tremendous strength, the scissors were sent flying into the air. Xiaohua's eyes swept over the devil hammer, and he couldn't help but be shocked. A faint scar had actually appeared on the devil hammer. Good, what magic treasure is this? Before he could scream, his head was smashed into pieces, and his entire corpse fell from midair. With Yan Yu's death, the 4 forbidden formations immediately lost their effectiveness. Liang Yu did not say anything, turned around, and flew in the direction of Haoming City, and even ignored the flying scissors that were flying towards Xiaohua. How could Xiaohua let Liang Yu go? His figure flew again, and his speed was several times faster than Liang Yu's. Without waiting for Liang Yu to fly more than 300 meters, Xiaohua had already caught up to him. Xiaohua rubbed his hands together, and the spiritual energy of heaven and earth around Liang Yu began to condense, and his magic power was also imprisoned. Senior Xiao, please spare my life. Liang Yu urged his magic power several times, wanting to cast a spell, but Xiaohua's powerful earth condensation technique did not allow him to urge his true essence at all. Liang Yu immediately understood that Xiaohua's cultivation was definitely not something he could compare to, and he immediately opened his mouth to beg for mercy. In your next life. Xiaohua sneered. He waved the yang leaf fan in his hand again, and a fire dragon also flew out, howling as it drowned Liang Yu. The bone-piercing pain caused Liang Yu to have no choice but to scream. His figure fell from midair, and in just a dozen breaths of time, he was burned until there was not a trace of him left. Humph, Xiaohua snorted coldly. He was not in a hurry to take the storage pouch. Instead, he waved his hand, and the half-flying scissors floating in midair fell into his hand. At this time, the flying scissors had lost their brilliance, but the sharp blade still flashed with a cold light. My goodness, what kind of magic weapon is this? It's actually so sharp. Xiaohua praised inwardly. With a wave of his hand, Liang Yu's storage pouch flew over. But just as Xiaohua took the intact storage pouch in his hand and wanted to check it, a divine sense swept over from afar, and then a slightly dignified voice sounded, "Which fellow Taoist is rashly making a rash move here? Are you not taking the warning of my Haoming City seriously?" Xiaohua was shocked. His divine sense quickly swept over, and when he saw who it was, his expression changed several times. His hand was dissatisfied, and with a flick of his finger, a wisp of true samadhi fire flew out, landing on the corpses of Yan Yu, Jie Ming, and the others that were not destroyed in time. Then, his face was as calm as water. With another wave of his hand, Yan Yu and Jie Ming's storage pouches were also taken by him, and slowly flew into Xiaohua's hand. Chapter 2071. Xiaohua coldly stood in the air. The 4 storage bags flew in front of him, and the magic tool that looked like half a pair of scissors was also covered by his sleeve. He very calmly looked in the direction of where his divine sense had come from. A moment later, a late-stage Foundation Establishment cultivator dressed in armor flew over with several Foundation Establishment and aura refining cultivators. This cultivator had clear facial features and looked rather Taoist. It was Haoming City's city guard captain, Yu Chen. Xiaohua actually recognized one of the city guards he led. It was the aura refining cultivator he met outside Haoming City, Lu Cheng. At this time, an aura refining city guard could actually follow behind Yu Chen. Obviously, the auspicious light stone played a big role. When Lu Qing saw Xiaohua in front of him, his face also showed surprise. Compared to Lu Cheng's surprise, Yu Chen's shock was even more obvious. However, although Yu Chen's heart was overwhelmed with shock, his face was still calm. His figure only stopped when he was 10 feet away from Xiaohua. After a slight hesitation, he looked at the few balls of samadhi true fire that had already burned out and narrowed his eyes. It was unknown what he was thinking in his heart. When he looked at Xiaohua again, his eyes moved and swept over Yu Chen and the others. He calmly took the storage pouches one by one and tied them to his waist in succession, as if the others weren't in front of him. However, when he pointed at the formation token next to Yan Yu's disappeared corpse and slowly flew up, Yu Chen said, "Fellow Taoist Xiao, don't you plan to give this old man an explanation?" He, Xiaohua laughed and looked at the formation token. He said, "Although Captain, you came late, you also saw the end. Do you need me to explain?" Yu Chen frowned slightly and said coldly, "This old man saw you kill other cultivators and didn't put the rules of my Haoming city in your eyes. That's why I asked. If it weren't for the fact that you're a disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect and have met this old man once, this old man would have already taken you down." As he spoke, the formation plate had already flown into Xiaohua's hand. Xiaohua looked at it, then put it into his storage bag. He then scanned it with his divine will. His gaze once again looked several dozen feet away. The 5 fingers on his right hand slightly curled and grabbed at several spots in the void. Several formation plates flew out from the cliff and the stream and landed in Xiaohua's hand. "Captain Yu, do you know what kind of array this is?" Xiaohua shook the array disc in his hand and asked with a smile. When Yu Chen flew over, he had already sensed the traces of the 4-gate forbidden arrays, so he didn't dare to casually approach Xiaohua. At this moment, when he saw Xiaohua openly take out the array discs, his expression changed slightly. Hearing Xiaohua's question, he pondered for a moment and shook his head. "This old man doesn't know how to set up arrays, so I don't know what kind of array this is." Xiaohua's heart settled. With a wave of his hand, he put the disc array into his storage bag and said with a smile, "At this point, do you still need me to explain?" "Of course, fellow Taoist Xiao has to explain." Yu Chen laughed and clapped his hand. The pressure of a late foundation establishment stage was released and pressed down on Xiaohua from above. Otherwise, how can this old man, however, before he could finish speaking, he saw Xiaohua's face turn cold. He clapped his hand and released the pressure of a mid-foundation establishment stage without hesitation. At the same time, he waved his other hand and the cloud-suppressing seal flew out of space. It made a buzzing sound in the air and a bronze light shot out like a sharp sword, quickly flying above Yu Chen and the others. "How dare you!" Yu Chen didn't say anything. A mid-foundation establishment stage cultivator behind him angrily shouted and flew up, about to release his pressure. Wait! At this moment, out of everyone's expectations, when Yu Chen's pressure met Xiaohua's, he immediately withdrew it. He shouted in a low voice and stopped the city guard's action. Yes. That city guard didn't dare to disobey and hurriedly bowed. However, his figure flew several feet and faced Xiaohua, as if he wanted to surround him. "Fellow Taoist Xiao," Yu Chen withdrew his pressure, narrowed his eyes, and said, "My Haoming city has always handled matters fairly. Although all cultivators are prohibited from killing each other within Haoming city's sphere of influence, the grudges between ordinary cultivators won't be forcibly stopped. Especially for fellow Taoist Xiao. In this old man's opinion, fellow Taoist Xiao must have been ganged up on by many people. Moreover, fellow Taoist Xiao's magic power is outstanding. Instead, he killed 4 people in a formation. My Haoming city absolutely won't hold fellow Taoist Xiao responsible for this kind of matter." Seeing that Yu Chen didn't ask clearly and pushed the cause of everything to the 4 cultivators he didn't see and cleared Xiaohua's responsibility, Xiaohua frowned slightly and said inwardly, "Could it be that this Yu Chen is doing this for the sake of the 3 elders of the Ardent Fire Mountain? Or is it because of my identity as a disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect? But he didn't seem to be like this just now." However, since Yu Chen said so, Xiaohua naturally pushed the boat with the current. Xiaohua pointed his hand, and the cloud-suppressing seal flew back with a wang wang sound. Xiaohua caught it with his hand and nodded, saying, "Just as Captain Yu said, these 4 people don't know me at all. They actually set up an ambush here and wanted to take my life. I also know the rules of Haoming City, but my life was on the line, so I had no choice but to take action. If I have offended Haoming City in any way, please forgive me, Captain Yu." Hee, this old man knew it. Yu Qin laughed. The Imperial Thunder Sect is a famous sect. How could it go against my Haoming City? It must be someone else who schemed against fellow Daoist Xiao. This old man asked again and again just now, and this is the reason. Well, since Captain Yu has already asked clearly, can I leave now? Can this Xiao leave now? Xiaohua didn't want to say another word to Yu Qin, so he went straight to the point. Of course, Yu Qin said with a smile, since fellow Daoist Xiao didn't violate the rules of my Haoming City, this old man has no right to keep fellow Daoist Xiao here. Okay, Xiaohua nodded and waved his hand. A few true samadhi fire flew out and burned the corpses of Yan Yu and the others. Then, he rose into the air and was about to fly in the direction of Haoming City. Fellow Daoist Xiao. At this time, Yu Qin spoke again. What? Captain Yu, is there anything else? Xiaohua's figure froze, but no expression could be seen on his face. Nothing. Yu Qin said with a smile, if fellow Daoist Xiao needs anything, you can send a message to me at any time. I believe I can still help fellow Daoist Xiao in Haoming City. Xiaohua saw that Yu Qin actually gave him a gentle attitude and was slightly stunned. He pondered for a while and cupped his hands, saying, I know. If there's anything, I'll definitely ask Captain Yu for help. Please, Yu Qin stretched out his hand and motioned for Xiaohua to go first. Xiaohua didn't stand on ceremony and turned and flew away. Chapter 2072. When Xiaohua's figure disappeared, the middle stage Foundation Establishment City Guard opened his mouth and said, Captain Yu, why did you let Xiaohua go just like that? He had killed 4 Foundation Establishment cultivators in this place. If the masters of these 4 cultivators come, what will happen to our Haoming City? Yu Qin coldly glanced at the city guard and asked, how do you know there were 4 Foundation Establishment cultivators? A trace of pride flashed in the city guard's eyes, and he said with a smile, if there were 4 Qi refinement cultivators, how could Xiaohua set up a formation to kill them? It must be because he couldn't defeat them, so he thought of using a formation. Captain, didn't you see him easily take out the formation plate and other things? Yang Ming, Yu Qin sighed and said, your cultivation is good, and you have some brains, but do you know why you've always been under Shang Qinghe? That's because Shang Qinghe has the talent to flatter, not because of me. Yang Ming blurted out. Obviously, he already had resentment in his heart. If Shang Qinghe was here, he definitely wouldn't question this old man's decision. Yu Qin sneered and waved his hand. Let's go. We'll return to the city. But Yang Ming glanced at several places that were burned by Xiaohua and hesitated to speak. None of you saw what happened today. If this old man sees it and divulges it, don't blame this old man for being impolite. Yu Qin said coldly. This old man doesn't dare. Everyone was terrified and bowed. Also, this place, no one is to check it out. After 10 days, come back and inspect it. Yu Qin's gaze swept across the valley, and he gave another order and flew up. Yu Qin and the others disappeared. After a long time, Xiaohua's figure suddenly appeared on the foothills of a mountain. He looked in the direction of Haoming City and said to himself, this Yu Qin, what's going on? Why is he so partial to this young master? What is he afraid of? This young master really doesn't understand. Immediately, Xiaohua flew to the place where he killed Yan Yu and carefully looked for a long time. He didn't find any flaws, so he flew away again. In the distance, Yang Ming was carefully accompanying Yu Qin, quietly listening to Yu Qin's reprimand, although I didn't know that it was Xiaohua who set the trap to kill the 4 Foundation Establishment cultivators, Elder Yu. Yang Ming whispered, "It seems. I can't tell that there are 4 foundation establishment cultivators. Perhaps there were aura refining disciples as well? Or perhaps there is only one foundation establishment disciple?" Yuchen glanced at Yang Ming and smiled. "How do you know there are 4 cultivators? Or perhaps 5 or 6 cultivators? That can't be. Xiaohua only has 4 storage bags in his hands. It should be 4 cultivators." Yang Ming replied without hesitation. "Since you know that there are 4 storage bags, didn't you notice the quality of the 4 storage bags?" Yuchen said with a smile. "This." Yang Ming was dumbfounded. How could he notice so many details? It's easy to be a foundation establishment middle stage cultivator, as long as you have enough cultivation. Yuchen sighed and said, "But if you want to be a Haoming City guard captain, you have to have enough cultivation and not know how to observe details. You don't know how to observe people's expressions. You don't know how to. Alas, left and right, there are many things you need to know." Yuchen waved his hand. "Although I can't carefully examine the quality of these 4 storage bags, I can see that they are definitely not aura refining cultivators. Therefore, the owners of these 4 storage bags must be foundation establishment cultivators." I understand." Yang Ming's face showed a look of admiration. "Moreover, think about it. If Xiaohua used a formation to set up an ambush and wanted to kill 4 foundation establishment cultivators, do you think these 4 foundation establishment cultivators would be foundation establishment early stage?" Yuchen said again, "Don't forget, Xiaohua just came into contact with this old man's spiritual pressure. His spiritual pressure was beyond this old man's expectations. It was actually foundation establishment middle stage." Foundation establishment middle stage? Yang Ming was shocked. This Xiaohua actually knows how to conceal his cultivation? This old man only saw that his cultivation was foundation establishment early stage. And this should be a secret cultivation concealment technique passed down in the Imperial Thunder sect. Yu Chen's eyes flickered, and he said, "A foundation establishment middle stage used a formation to set up an ambush. Among the 4 cultivators with similar cultivation, 2 of them should be foundation establishment middle stage. Even 4 of them should be foundation establishment middle stage. With the strength of one person and the power of a formation, he actually killed 4 foundation establishment middle stage cultivators." Yang Ming was shocked. This Xiaohua's strength, isn't it comparable to the edge of foundation establishment late stage? This old man doesn't know what kind of formation Xiaohua set up, and I can't judge Xiaohua's true strength. Yuchen shook his head. "However, if I say that he has the strength of foundation establishment late stage, I think I overestimated him. However, seeing that he removed the formation in front of this old man and wasn't afraid of this old man's reproach, this old man believes that he must have some kind of backup plan." The shock on Yang Ming's face was difficult to hide, and he once again said with admiration, "This old man will never forget Captain's teachings. This old man really didn't think so much." Hee, Yuchen laughed. "It's also a great advantage for you to concentrate on cultivation. As long as you improve your cultivation, these insignificant things are nothing." Yes, this old man knows. This old man will follow Captain's lead. Yang Ming saluted and smiled apologetically. "Just based on Captain's approachability, I think Xiaohua will be grateful to Captain's actions in his heart. If there is anything in the future, it will also be a small help." Hee, I hope so." Yuchen nodded and said, "Although my Haoming City is powerful, it's nothing in the eyes of the Imperial Thunder sect. As a disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect, Xiaohua naturally won't put this old man in his eyes. However, he has these things that can't be considered as blackmail in my eyes. Under this old man's blind friendship, he will definitely." Hearing Yuchen say something that can't be considered as evidence, it didn't mean that Yuchen had finished speaking. Yang Ming suddenly realized something and even stuttered a little as he said, Captain, you mean that the 4 people that Xiaohua killed?" Yuchen's face changed, and he shook his head and said, "I didn't say anything." This Yu's divine sense also didn't see which sect the 4 people Xiaohua killed were from. Yes, this old man understands. Yang Ming's face also tightened, and he said hurriedly. But immediately, Yang Ming's eyes turned again, and he whispered, "Old you, we all believe that Xiao Hua set up a formation to kill the 4 cultivators. But what if it is as Xiao Hua said, the 4 cultivators set up a formation to ambush Xiao Hua? If Xiao Hua has such strength, he can still kill the 4 foundation establishment cultivators under the formation and not let any of the 4 cultivators escape." Yu Qin sneered, "Then Xiao Hua is not Xiao Hua, he should be a golden core cultivator." Yes, this old man understands. Yang Ming smiled apologetically. If Xiao Hua has such strength, Captain's friendship is even more valuable. If he has the cultivation of a golden core cultivator, can we still escape from his hands? Yu Qin snorted coldly, "I'm afraid that we will be the first to leave, right?" However, speaking of this, Yu Chen's heart moved. He hesitated for a moment and sent a voice transmission to Yang Ming. "No way." After listening to Yu Chen's voice transmission, Yang Ming's face showed horror. "Let's go and take a look first." Yu Chen ordered, "Just based on a few words just now, this old man can't really befriend Xiao Hua. If I can find something, it can also be useful to this old man. A disciple of the Imperial Thunder Sect, a cultivator who can easily kill the same level, no matter how much it costs, we should befriend him." Yes, this old man understands. Yang Ming cupped his hands and prepared to leave. "Remember, be secretive, don't let Xiao Hua find out anything," Yu Chen said worriedly. "This old man understands." Yang Ming nodded and said, "This old man can still do this well." And, after Yang Ming flew away, Yu Chen put his hands behind his back, looked into the distance, and sighed in his heart, Xiao Hua, this old man is humble to befriend you, don't let this old man down." How could Xiao Hua think that killing Yan Yu would cause Yu Chen to befriend him? At this time, Xiao Hua was sitting cross-legged on the futon, holding the scissor-like magic weapon in his hand. He immersed his divine thought into a jade slip, and his face showed joy. "Ha, soaring dragon scissors." Xiao Hua laughed out loud, opened his eyes, and looked at the magic weapon with joy. This young master's dream execution is now breeding the primordial spirit, so it can't be used for the time being. This cloud-suppressing seal is indeed powerful, but I always feel that it's not powerful enough. Now that I have obtained such a powerful magic weapon, how can I not be happy? Then, Xiao Hua's eyes flashed with a sharp color, and he sneered, "Yan Yu, Liang Yu, and the others are just clowns. They say that they are avenging their nephew, but their goal is this young master's storage bag. Now, it's good that they went for wool and came back shorn. Instead, they gave this young master a magic weapon. Unfortunately, this young master's hands and feet are a little slow." It actually attracted Yu Qin, who used pressure to force out this young master's true cultivation. This secret method of stealing the sky and swapping the sun seems to be not perfect. But, what's wrong with knowing it? Xiao Hua thought proudly, it's just a late-stage foundation establishment cultivator. If it weren't for the captain of the city guards of Haoming City, this young master wouldn't have any scruples. As long as it has any rebellious thoughts, this young master will kill it all the same. Then, Xiao Hua flicked his hand, and a spell seal hit the half of the soaring dragon scissors. The soaring dragon scissors suddenly flashed, and a golden light burst out like the sun after the clouds opened, illuminating the entire cave. Great, seeing the soaring dragon scissors in such a strange state, which was completely different from when Liang Yu used it, Xiao Hua's face showed joy. He cheered, and the spell seals in his hand continued to hit out. Along with Xiao Hua's sacrificial refining, the flood dragon on the soaring dragon scissors gradually appeared until it was 1 foot long. Then, like a dragon soaring to the 9 heavens, it flew in the cave and circled around Xiao Hua. After several hours, even with Xiao Hua's cultivation, he was still somewhat dispirited. Xiao Hua opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood on the soaring dragon scissors. A blood-like cold light flashed, and the originally closed eyes of the soaring flood dragon suddenly opened. That cold light actually shot out from the flood dragon's eyes. Moreover, the flood dragon's figure rapidly shrank, and quickly returned to the original appearance of the soaring dragon scissors, floating in front of Xiao Hua's eyes. Chapter 2073. The Ting Jiao shears was still the original Ting Jiao shears, but the eyes on the handle had already opened. Faintly, there was an uncontrollable sharpness that seemed to want to stand out from the Ting Jiao shears. Xiao Hua opened his mouth, and the Ting Jiao shears flew into his mouth and was sent into his Buddhist heart. He secretly smiled and said, "Looks like this young master got another treasure." This Ting Jiao shears was accidentally obtained by Liang Yu, not a magic treasure taught by Sun Yan. Moreover, the Ting Jiao shears is divided into yin and yang sides. Liang Yu only got the incomplete yang side. Just with this half of the Ting Jiao shears, this young master already feels like a tiger that has grown wings. It is even more powerful than the dream-killing flying sword. When I get the other half of the Ting Jiao shears in the future, with the combination of yin and yang, I'm afraid that even a middle-stage gold core cultivator would be killed by this young master, right? Xiao Lang, Xiao Lang. At this moment, Xue Xue's exclamation came from outside. Xiao Hua didn't have time to look at the other storage pouches. He swept it with his divine sense, and his face also showed panic. He responded, "Wife, don't worry." As Xiao Hua's figure flew out, he saw that Xue Xue was already standing in front of the pill furnace, looking at the constantly fluctuating furnace with some panic. Boom! It seemed like the lid of the furnace was about to be lifted. The phantoms of two male and female lightning beasts flew out from the pill furnace, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws as they floated above the pill furnace. The two lightning beast phantoms were about a foot tall. As soon as they appeared, it was as if they had seen an irreconcilable enemy. They flapped their wings and pounced on each other. Quick! Xiao Hua didn't have time to watch the two phantoms fight. He formed hand seals and hit the pill furnace one after another. The three-legged vermilion bird phoenix pattern furnace was originally swaying left and right in the midst of the fight between the phantoms, and it was about to collapse. As Xiao Hua's hand seals were inserted, it slowly stabilized. Seeing that the pill furnace was stable, Xiao Hua flicked his hand, and several samadhi true fire flew out and fell into the pill furnace. Shwa! Several brilliant lights flew out from the cauldron and landed on the two thunder beasts' phantoms. The thunder beasts' phantoms suddenly expanded and became 2 feet tall. As the lightning beast's silhouette grew bigger, the heaven and earth spirit energy within the cave was absorbed by the silhouette, causing the sound of wind to fall into it. Alright, at this moment, Xiao Hua's expression was somewhat relaxed. He knew that right now was the time when the yin and yang of the male and female lightning beasts' blood fused. It was the most crucial moment. Countless Xue family ancestors had failed to refine the Ling Lei Dan at this moment. Therefore, he didn't dare to be careless. He released his spiritual will and observed carefully. The two thunder beast phantoms were evenly matched, and neither could do anything to the other. After fighting for several breaths, they suddenly raised their heads at the same time, pounded their chests with their fists, and suddenly rushed towards each other. Right now. Joy appeared on Xiao Hua's face. He stretched out his left arm and grabbed at the air with his 5 fingers. It was as if he was grabbing something from the pill furnace. As Xiao Hua raised his arm, he spat out a mouthful of true essence, and a black and white net flew out from the pill furnace. One on the left and one on the right, it covered the male and female lightning beast phantoms. Combine, Xiao Hua uttered an incantation, and his hands continuously formed seals. The two phantoms originally collided with each other, and under the adhesion of the black and white net, they gradually merged into one. Although this process only took a few breaths, the more the two phantoms merged, the greater the repulsive force between them. Separating and merging caused Xiao Hua to consume a lot of magic power. Combine, Xiao Hua shouted once again, and a wisp of faint scarlet-red spirit fire suddenly flew out. It circled around the illusory figure, and all of the repulsive force from before disappeared. With a loud bang, the entire alchemy furnace shook violently, and the two illusory figures combined together as they wished, and were absorbed into the alchemy furnace. Granny, Xiao Hua's figure slightly swayed in midair. He seemed to be somewhat lacking in magic power. Looking at the three-legged vermilion bird phoenix pattern furnace that was as quiet as a virgin, he couldn't help but groan. What kind of cultivator can refine this Ling Lei Dan so easily? This young master's alchemy technique is completely different from Xiaoyu continent, and my magic power is also close to gold core. Why can't I refine this thing easily? No wonder Shue's heart is tangled. How could her ancestor refine this Ling Lei Dan? Husband. Seeing Xiao Hua flying in the air and the pill furnace returning to its calm state, Shue in the distance shouted in a low voice, "Is there a mistake?" He, Xiao Hua turned his head and said with a slight smile, "In your husband's hands, how could there be the slightest mistake? Wife, don't worry. In another 10 days, this Ling Lei Dan will be successfully refined, and it will also be the day you build your foundation." Really? Shue's face showed surprise, and she couldn't help but offer her cherry lips considerately to Xiao Hua. The two of them were affectionate for a moment, and Shue showed hesitation again and said in a low voice, "Husband, the cultivation method you taught me. I'm still a little unfamiliar with it. These meridians still haven't expanded. I think it's better not to take the Ling Lei Dan first. It won't be too late to take it when I feel confident, right?" Xiao Hua thought for a moment and said with a smile, "It's all up to you. Your husband will accompany you. Whether you build your foundation in Haoming City today or in the Sea of Heaven tomorrow, your husband will stand guard for you." "Thank you, husband," Shue chuckled, her face full of happiness. At this moment, Xiao Hua's brows slightly wrinkled again, and he swept his divine sense outside the abode. "Huh? Why is this guy here?" Xiao Hua saw the person outside the abode, and he couldn't help but be surprised. "Husband? Who is it? Could it be the fire Qilin again?" Shue saw Xiao Hua's unkind expression and asked in a low voice. "It's not the fire Qilin," Xiao Hua shook his head and said, "It's Haoming City Guard Captain Yu Chen." Shue was also puzzled, but she looked at Xiao Hua and said with a smile, "I'm going to cultivate by myself. You can send him away yourself." After saying that, without waiting for Xiao Hua to answer, she walked to a corner, sat cross-legged, and closed her eyes to comprehend. Xiao Hua knew that Shue didn't want to ask more about him, so he smiled slightly, went out of the pill room, opened all the restrictions, and went outside the abode. On the side of the abode, Yu Chen stood there casually without any city guards. Xiao Hua opened the abode and said with a smile, "Captain Yu, I haven't seen you for a few days again. May I know what business you have in my abode today?" Yu Chen released his divine sense. Seeing that there were no other cultivators around, he cupped his hands and said, "I didn't come to your abode for a special visit. I wonder if fellow Daoist Xiao can let me in for a chat." "Huh?" Hearing that Yu Chen actually said that he had nothing to do and wanted to enter the abode to talk, Xiao Hua was slightly stunned. His mind turned quickly, guessing Yu Chen's intention. "I wonder if he saw through the matter of me killing Yen Yu. Fellow Daoist Xiao, don't misunderstand." Seeing Xiao Hua hesitate, how could Yu Chen not know what Xiao Hua was thinking? He hurriedly said, "I just saw fellow Daoist Xiao's profound magic power and wanted to make friends with you, so I came to talk to fellow Daoist Xiao." Chapter 2074. Profound magic power? You want to make friends with him? Xiao Hua was even more stunned. Ever since he started cultivating, all the cultivators he met were either using him or forcing him to do things. How could he make friends with someone? Most of the people he had some friendship with were related to him. Someone unrelated to him like Yu Chen, this was the first time. However, Xiao Hua still cupped his hands and smiled. "My cultivation is shallow. I've never met a fellow Daoist like fellow Daoist you, please forgive me." It's fine," Yu Chen was comforted when he heard Xiao Hua call him, fellow Daoist you. "Aren't you going to invite me in?" "Ha ha ha, fellow Daoist you, please." Xiao Hua stepped aside and invited Yu Chen into the cave. Yu Chen was only at the late stage of foundation establishment. Xiao Hua had already killed late-stage foundation establishment cultivators when he was at the peak of qi refinement. He wasn't afraid of Yu Chen having any other thoughts. Where's fellow Taoist Shui? Yuchen entered the cave and didn't release his divine sense. Fellow Taoist Yu, please sit, Xiaohua invited Yuchen to sit and replied. Junior sister is in seclusion. She's looking for a chance to reach Foundation establishment. She can't come out to meet you. Not bad, Yuchen sighed. He watched Xiaohua take out some spirit fruits from his space. He casually picked one and ate while saying, "You disciples of large sects have an advantage. Your cultivation is guaranteed. You can't compare to us wild fox cultivators. Look, your junior sister is about to reach Foundation establishment. As her senior brother, you're accompanying her from thousands of miles away. I'm really envious. Hee, fellow Taoist Yu, please don't laugh at me." Xiaohua took out some spirit wine and smiled. I got this from somewhere else. I don't know where it came from. Fellow Taoist Yu, please have a taste. Oh. It's not from your Imperial Thunder sect? Yuchen was stunned. However, he still picked up the wine cup and took a sip. I've drunk this spirit wine before. It seems to be Tianmen Mountain's Huang family's clear wine. Xiaohua thought for a moment, then said with a smile, this Xiao doesn't like spirit wine, but this thing seems to be. The two of them then chatted for a while. Yuchen patted his storage bag and took out a jade slip. He handed it to Xiaohua and said, fellow Taoist Xiao, I ate your spirit fruit and drank your spirit wine. This is a little bit of this old man's sincerity. I hope fellow Taoist Xiao can accept it. Oh. What is this? Xiaohua looked at the jade strip and asked somewhat strangely. Yuchen smiled and said, won't fellow Taoist Xiao know if you take a look? When Xiaohua took the jade slip and immersed his divine sense into it, he couldn't help but reveal a look of surprise. Moreover, his eyes flashed with a trace of fierceness. Yuchen didn't panic at all and said with a smile, this old man wants to be on good terms with fellow Taoist Xiao, so I naturally have to understand fellow Taoist Xiao. I just so happen to be the captain of Haoming City's city guards. Some things might be difficult for others, but it's as easy as flipping my palm for me. However, fellow Taoist Xiao, don't worry, this old man knows the severity of the matter. This old man didn't inquire about the rogue cultivator who sold the body refinement cultivation method. Moreover, according to this old man's knowledge, it's impossible for this old man to inquire about the situation. Xiaohua's eyes turned slightly, and he returned the jade slip to Yuchen and said with a smile, fellow Taoist use painstaking efforts, this Xiao appreciates. However, this isn't what this Xiao needs. Doesn't fellow Taoist Xiao need a body refinement cultivation method? Yuchen took the jade slip and said, this cultivation method is the best cultivation method in my Haoming City's jade field paradise. Fellow Taoist Yu, Xiaohua pondered for a moment and said with a smile, since fellow Taoist Yu has such intentions, then this Xiao won't hide it from fellow Taoist. This Xiao doesn't need a body refinement cultivation method, but a bone tempering cultivation method. Bone tempering? When Yuchen heard this, his face revealed a disappointed expression. He put away the jade slip and said resentfully, from what this old man has seen, I really haven't heard of any bone tempering cultivation method. This old man is somewhat ignorant and inexperienced. Bone tempering cultivation methods are rare in the first place. Xiaohua said with a smile, this Xiao only has a divine ability that requires the assistance of this cultivation method. Otherwise, this Xiao absolutely wouldn't have thought of it. It's normal that fellow Taoist Yu doesn't know about it. Okay, Yuchen said with a smile, since I know that fellow Taoist Xiao needs a bone tempering cultivation method, this you will help fellow Taoist Xiao look for it in Haoming City. Xiaohua was overjoyed when he heard this. He cupped his hands and said, thank you for your kindness, fellow Taoist Yu. In fact, there's no need to be restricted to Haoming City. As long as there's news of bone tempering cultivation methods in Xiaoyu continent, this Xiao will be endlessly grateful. This you understands. Yuchen nodded. Immediately, Xiaohua's heart moved again. He clapped his hands, took out the soaring dragon shears, and asked, fellow Taoist Yu, have you seen this thing before? Yuchen didn't take it. He only scanned it with his divine sense and shook his head, saying, "This you hasn't seen it before." However, seeing that this magic treasure is incomplete, fellow Taoist Xiao means. Yes, fellow Taoist you, please pay attention. If there's news of this magic treasure, please inform this Xiao. Xiao Hua said with a smile. Okay, fellow Taoist Xiao, please rest assured. This you will help you pay attention. When Yuchen saw that Xiao Hua entrusted this matter to him without any hesitation, he was overjoyed. He knew that this trip wasn't in vain. He made friends with a cultivator with unlimited potential, so he immediately patted his chest and said with a smile. Yes, fellow Taoist you, Xiao Hua thought. He waved his hand, took out a few jade boxes, and placed them in front of Yuchen. He said with a smile, fellow Taoist you came prepared, which made this Xiao a little nervous. This Xiao prepared these spiritual herbs for future use. Today, I'll give them to fellow Taoist you as a gift for our first meeting. When Yuchen saw that Xiao Hua was so generous, he was overjoyed. He waved his hand and said, fellow Taoist Xiao, this you is happy to see you. How could I covet your Imperial Thunder Sect spiritual herbs? Fellow Taoist's way of doing things makes this you a little uneasy. Fellow Taoist Xiao, please take these things back. This is this Xiao's goodwill. Fellow Taoist you, don't be in a hurry to refuse. Xiao Hua said with a smile, let's take a look first and see if it's beneficial to your cultivation. If it's not useful, then it won't be too late to refuse. Okay, Yuchen didn't mind. He didn't think that a middle-stage foundation establishment cultivator could take out spiritual herbs that could move his heart. Moreover, Haoming City was a city of auctions. What kind of spiritual herbs hadn't he seen before? However, in order to not let Xiao Hua lose face, Yuchen still decided to take a look. Whether or not they were useful to him, he would take them back first. However, when Yuchen opened a jade box and saw the spiritual herbs inside, he couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. His eyes emitted a trace of divine light. He looked around and said in a low voice, Xiao. Fellow Taoist Xiao, these spiritual herbs. I'm afraid they're over 10,000 years old. When he saw Xiao Hua's smiling expression, he hurriedly opened the other jade boxes. After taking a look, the joy on his face became even stronger. He looked at Xiao Hua with a complicated gaze. With a wave of his hand, he put away the jade boxes into his storage pouch. He sighed and said, I won't say anything else. Fellow Taoist Xiao is really considerate. These spiritual herbs are exactly what I need. If I were to be unreasonable, I would have come here in vain today. Great, Xiao Hua also clapped his hands and said with a smile, fellow Taoist you has such a magnanimous heart. I'm relieved. Yuchen thought for a moment and said, fellow Taoist Xiao, I'm still a bit uneasy after taking your spiritual herbs. The matter you mentioned just now is a bit tricky. I'm afraid it might not be effective in a short time. Do you have any other difficult matters? If I can help you, please don't hesitate to tell me. Hearing this, Xiao Hua's heart moved. He clapped his hands and took out a blank jade slip. He wrote some things on it and handed it to Yuchen with a smile. I was just about to tell fellow Taoist you that these things are exactly what I need. Because I'm not familiar with the auction in Haoming City, I only participated in the auction for nascent soul cultivators and foundation establishment cultivators. I didn't come across these things. If it's convenient for fellow Taoist you, please help me gather them. I will be eternally grateful. Yuchen took the jade slip, glanced at it, and said with a smile, so it's some materials for refining tools. They're not too rare. Fellow Taoist Xiao, you just have to wait for a day or two. Xiao Hua was secretly delighted, but there was nothing special on his face. He cupped his hands and said, thank you for your trouble, fellow Taoist. I'll give the spirit stones to fellow Taoist right away. No need, no need. Yuchen hurriedly waved his hand. These materials don't require many spirit stones. Moreover, the 81-day time limit for refining the high thunder pill would expire in 10 days. He naturally wouldn't leave Hao Ming's city in a hurry. It was normal for him to wait for 10 days, regardless of whether there was any news or not. After seeing Yu Chen off, Xiaohua checked the materials used to refine the cloud-suppressing seal again, and looked at the refining technique to make sufficient preparations for refining the cloud-suppressing seal. Chapter 2075. Rise. Xiaohua's 10 fingers opened slightly, and his spiritual power faintly penetrated into the three-legged vermilion bird phoenix pattern furnace. A clear sound came from inside the furnace, and it was actually the sound of a thunder beast roaring towards the sky. Moreover, a rich fragrance spread throughout the entire alchemy room. Xue stood far away in a corner of the alchemy room, and her eyes revealed endless admiration and pride. Looking at Xiaohua, who was about to condense the pill, there was a trace of uneasiness behind that joyful expression. Right at this time, Xiaohua chuckled and looked back at Xue. He formed a spell with both hands. The spell was very obscure, and the fluctuation of spiritual power was extremely strange. It was very different from the alchemy methods seen in the Xiaoyu continent. Fortunately, Xue didn't know alchemy at all, and there was no other strange expression in her eyes except for admiration. However, what puzzled Xue was that as Xiaohua formed a spell, the slightly vibrating alchemy furnace began to stabilize, and the hissing sound also became smaller. However, at the same time, the fragrance in the room also disappeared, as if it was restrained inside the alchemy furnace. This was very different from the alchemy techniques she had heard of. When Xiaohua waved his hand, a faint black and white brilliance flashed above the alchemy furnace, and Xiaohua's face was slightly surprised. Huh? This Ling Lei pill, can't it be pulled out? Xiaohua muttered in a low voice, and didn't dare to hesitate. He immediately waved his hand, and the flame under the alchemy furnace was immediately extinguished. He waved his hand, and a jade slip appeared in his hand, and he carefully read it. After a long time, Xiaohua put away the jade slip, but his brows didn't loosen. Husband, Xue saw this and asked in a low voice, "Is there a mistake?" Xiaohua smiled and said, "What mistake?" "It's just the process of refining the Ling Lei pill. It's a little different from what your husband knows. Your husband originally wanted to refine a few pills at once. Who knew that you could only refine one pill, which really makes your husband unhappy?" Hee. Xue covered her mouth and laughed. Husband is really greedy. This Ling Lei pill is a heaven-defying item. My Xue family's ancestors spent a lot of effort to refine one pill, and you want to refine a few pills at once? Is this a joke? This concubine will be satisfied with just one. Hee. Xiaohua's mouth curled into a sly smile. My wife's problem has been solved, but what about our children? Husband still wants to leave some benefits for them. Hee. Xue's face flushed red when she heard this. She giggled and said, "With an alchemist like you, whenever the children need it, you can just refine it." But within Xue's charming smile, there was still a trace of gloom, far from what others could see. Wife is right, Xiaohua exaggeratedly slaps his forehead. If there is one child, this husband will refine it once. If there are 10 children, this husband will refine it 10 times. It really isn't a big deal. Hee not shy at all. Xue was abnormally shy, like a real young lady. After a short while, Xue asked again, "That's right. Husband, is the soaring lightning pill done?" That's fine. Xiaohua nodded and said, "The pill is already done. Since you can't pull the pill, wait a moment, this husband will directly collect the pill." "Good," Xue said with a faint smile. "After refining the soaring lightning pill, this concubine will follow husband to QC. There should be enough time to comprehend that wonderful technique along the way." Xiaohua heard this and thought of another matter. To go to QC, one must pass through Ink Cloud Black Forest. Xiaohua was very clear about the dangers of Ink Cloud Black Forest. If there wasn't any special passage, it would be very difficult for Xue, who was a refiner, to pass through. At this moment, Xiaohua felt some movement outside the cave. He laughed in his heart. Good, whoever wants to come can come. This is a good opportunity to ask fellow Taoist Yu if he has any shortcuts. However, when he released his divine sense and saw the person outside the cave, his face showed displeasure. The person outside was the Fire Qilin of Ardent Fire Mountain. Wife, the Fire Qilin has come. I wonder what's the matter. Xiao Hua said in a low voice. Xue Xue nodded slightly and said, Husband, you can just send him away. No matter what, husband will make the decision. Okay, Xiao Hua replied and went outside the cave. The Fire Qilin heard the noise and saw Xiao Hua come out. Its gaze was still looking behind Xiao Hua, but it was disappointed that Xue Xue wasn't behind Xiao Hua. Where is fellow Taoist Xue? The Fire Qilin asked. I will let fellow Taoist know, Xiao Hua said neither arrogantly nor humbly. My wife is in closed-door cultivation and can't see guests. I wonder if fellow Taoist has something to say. Fellow Taoist Xiao, the Fire Qilin asked sincerely, this fire knows that you and Xue Xue aren't dual cultivating, and this fire will be returning to Ardent Fire Mountain with grandfather today. This fire came today just to see fellow Taoist Xue. Fellow Taoist fire is leaving? Xiao Hua was somewhat surprised and asked curiously, the auction just ended a few dozen days ago and the elders of Ardent Fire Mountain are returning? Yes, something strange happened in Ardent Fire Mountain. Grandfather has to hurry back. The Fire Qilin was somewhat absent-minded. It didn't care about the advice of the three elders of Ardent Fire Mountain and casually said the reason, fellow Taoist Xiao, this fire just wants to see fellow Taoist Xue. It's fine even if we don't talk. Sorry, fellow Taoist fire, you should go back, Xiao Hua said after pondering for a moment. Chapter 2076. Xue. Fellow Taoist Xue, Fire Qilin saw that Xue Xue seemed to be unable to complete his sentence. What other thoughts do I have? I naturally know what you're thinking. I just want to see fellow Taoist Xue before leaving Haoming City. My blazing fire mountain is thousands of miles away from the Imperial Thunder sect, but this is nothing. I can be considered to have cultivated successfully now. If I wholeheartedly want to see fellow Taoist, this distance is nothing. But, how can this distance compare to the distance in my heart? Even if I'm facing fellow Taoist Xue now, I know that the distance in my heart is greater than the entire Dawn Rain continent. I can't surpass this distance even if I cultivate for a lifetime. I just want to see fellow Taoist Xue once, just once. These words were said with deep feelings, and even Xiao Hua was slightly moved. But Xue Xue didn't wait for Fire Qilin to finish speaking and asked indifferently, since Junior has already come out, it can be considered as meeting Senior. Senior, is there anything else? No. Nothing else. Fire Qilin was like a stunned goose as he answered. Well, since we've already met and Senior has nothing else, Junior will return. Xue Xue glanced at Fire Hibiscus behind Fire Qilin and said, Junior thanks Senior Hibiscus for taking care of me in the past. After speaking, she turned and left without waiting for Fire Hibiscus to speak. Fellow Taoist Xiao, Fire Hibiscus had an apologetic look on her face as she cupped her hands and said, I didn't plan to come and bid farewell to fellow Taoist, but I saw cousin coming over and was afraid that something had happened, so I followed. Since there's nothing else, I'll return with cousin. I hope to see fellow Taoist Xiao again in the future. Well, I even hope that fellow Taoist Xiao and sister Xue can get married soon. Thank you for your auspicious words, Xiao Hua cupped his hands and said, I can't send fellow Taoist off, please forgive me. It's fine fellow Taoist, please return. Fire Hibiscus glanced at Fire Qilin who was in a daze and said with a bitter smile. Then, Xiao Hua turned and returned, sealing the cave abode. Fire Qilin actually stood there in a daze for the time it took to burn an incense before leaving quietly. Wife, why did you say those words just now? Truly inappropriate. Xiao Hua watched the Fire Qilin leave and grumbled in a low voice. Hee, husband, if I don't say that, how can I make that Fire Qilin give up? Xue Xue laughed. I'm just saying, why take it so seriously? I just don't feel good. Xiaohua shook his head. Forget it, let's not talk about it anymore. The Ling Lei pill should be done, right? Shue urged. This concubine is looking forward to it. All right, Xiaohua's expression was greatly refreshed when he heard Shue mention the Ling Lei pill. He said, I will keep the Ling Lei pill now. We should also prepare to leave Haoming City. In this Haoming City, it's really a little aggrieved. Under Shue's caress, Xiaohua once again entered the alchemy room. At this time, the alchemy room was very quiet. Occasionally, there would be a slight sound coming from the alchemy furnace, like the chirping of birds or the swimming of fish. Listening to this sound was like the sound of nature. Moreover, the entire alchemy room was restored to its previous aura. The rich fragrance had completely disappeared. If one smelled it carefully, perhaps one could smell a trace of it when one got close to the alchemy furnace. Xiaohua's divine sense swept over and knew that it was the best time to collect the pill. Therefore, he signaled Shue to stay away from the alchemy furnace. He took a deep breath and mobilized the true essence in his body. Spiritual power surged into his fingers, and he slowly launched a series of alchemy techniques. The techniques hit the alchemy furnace. At first, there was no movement. Sure enough, Shue received the Ling Lei pill, and with her eyes and divine sense, she nodded and said, according to what was recorded in the jade slip, the Ling Lei pill has a strange fragrance, and there will be phantoms of lightning beasts in the surroundings, and there will even be miniature lightning beasts inside the pill. Xiaohua smiled bitterly, touched his nose and said, yes, and the Ling Lei pill should be half the size of a fist, far bigger than this. The color is also a little wrong. Shue continued, it should be black and white threads intertwining. Speaking up to here, Shue realized something and quickly shut her mouth, put the Ling Lei pill into the jade bottle, and said with a smile, this is already not bad. Husband only looked at the jade slip and refined the Ling Lei pill without anyone's guidance. This wife doesn't know what to say. Xiaohua didn't care about Shue's explanation, and after thinking for a while, he said, this husband's pill refining method is different from what was recorded in the jade slip, or the pill refined is different. However, this husband believes that since it can be refined, this Ling Lei pill will definitely be useful. This wife doesn't doubt my husband. Shue pursed her lips and said with a smile, however, this wife will wait until later to take it. As you wish, Xiaohua nodded, we will prepare to leave Bright Dawn City. Don't, wait a few more days, Shue shook her head and said, the disciples of the Ardent Fire Mountain might still be nearby, and if we encounter them, we won't be able to do anything, as my wife says. Xiaohua also didn't want to see the 3 elders of the Ardent Fire Mountain, so he nodded and agreed. On the 3rd day, Yuchen came, and just as he sat down, he smiled and said to Xiaohua, fellow Taoist Xiao, this old man has failed you. Huh? Xiaohua originally saw the smile on Yuchen's face, and thought that there was some whereabouts of the bone tempering technique, but Yuchen actually said this, and he couldn't help but feel surprised. However, Xiaohua smiled and said, no matter, this thing is rare, and this Xiao didn't plan to make it easy. If fellow Taoist you found it so quickly, this Xiao would be puzzled again. Fellow Taoist Xiao, Yuchen drank a mouthful of spiritual tea and said, this old man has failed you because this old man didn't get any accurate information from the city lord. Ah. Xiaohua laughed and clapped his hands, saying, so fellow Taoist you is joking with this Xiao. My city lord is a nascent soul cultivator, and his knowledge is 10,000 times better than ours. Although he doesn't know the whereabouts of the bone tempering technique, he has heard some rumors. Yuchen smiled proudly. According to him, this bone tempering technique was left behind from ancient times, and it has long disappeared from the Dawn Rain continent. It should be around 1,000 years ago. He heard a senior occasionally mention that there was a record in the ancient records of a certain sect that there was an ancient race who refined their bodies and tempered their bones on the overseas Sunset Island. Sunset Island? Xiaohua said happily, isn't that the exact location? This old man also had the same idea. Yuchen said with a smile, but the Kueha Sea is huge, and there are very few overseas cultivators. There is no island named Sunset Island among the few known in Haoming City. Oh, this is not good. Xiao Hua said with a frown. Yes, the waves in the Kueha Sea are stable, but the overseas area is full of monstrous waves, and the spiritual chi of heaven and earth is scarce. How can we find this so-called Sunset Island? Yuchen echoed, I think fellow Taoist Xiao should make other plans. After thinking for a moment, Xiao Hua shook his head and said, forget it, I promised junior sister that I would accompany her to the Kueha Sea. Since I'm going, I'll go and find her. If I don't go, I will have an inner demon in my heart. Fellow Taoist Xiao wants to go to the Kueha Sea? Yuchen frowned and asked, fellow Taoist, don't forget that from Haoming City to the Kueha Sea, you have to pass through the Majiao Black Forest. After passing through the Majiao Black Forest, you have to cross the whole Meng country. Without a flying spiritual artifact, fellow Taoist Xiao and fellow Taoist Shui will encounter more than a little difficulty. Hee, isn't this just for experience? Xiao Hua said with a smile, if not, how can junior sister Shui build her foundation? Well, okay, Yuchen nodded and clapped his hands. He took out a jade slip and said, this is the map of the Kueha Sea that I found in the Sutra Pavilion in Haoming City. If fellow Taoist Xiao insists on going, then take it. Oh, thank you so much, fellow Taoist Yu. Xiao Hua was even more surprised. He bowed and thanked Yuchen and reached out to take it. Xiao Hua didn't look at it carefully. He scanned it with his spiritual sense and put it into his space. Then, he asked, fellow Taoist Yu, you came at the right time. I want to ask if there is a secret path through the Majiao Black Forest in Haoming City. This. Yuchen was a little embarrassed. There are several secret paths in Haoming City. However, because of the Majiao Black Forest, these secret paths are all ineffective. We just found one recently, and it's not very stable. The danger inside is also unpredictable. That's good. Xiao Hua clapped his hands and said, as long as there is a secret path, it will save me and junior sister Shui the trouble of going into the Majiao Black Forest. As he spoke, he clapped his hands and took out a storage bag. This secret path must belong to Haoming City. These spirit stones are for me to buy information, so I won't make things too difficult for you, fellow Taoist Yu. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. You're tuning into the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.